Welcome to the Foul Play YouTube channel. Apologies again for being a little late. Not too bad today, but StreamYard decided it said you're not getting in. So anyway, I had to wait on that. Looks like everything's okay. Open mic 231. We got several things to discuss today. But first, I'd like to say hello to Doc.
Hey, Jack61, and hi, Susan, and hi, everyone in chat. Today should be very interesting indeed, Jack61. Looking forward to it.
Absolutely. Thank you, Doc. And Susan, how are you?
Good. Thank you. Hey, Doc. Hi, everybody. Welcome. Should be interesting.
Yeah, no doubt. So we've got several things on the plate. I don't know that we'll get to all of them. I don't want to keep everyone here, all that long. That's not what we want to do. But Dave Remiker. Let's talk about old Dave. What about old Dave? What's he done? What's old Dave Remiker done? Now, apparently, I guess I had not seen this, but he retired. When did he retire?
Yeah, right.
January.
January, the end of the month, I think.
Yes.
A week after they talked to him about this.
Oh, okay. I thought he had already retired. Okay, I'm
No.
okay. That's my misunderstanding. So anyway, apparently old Dave's had his hands in the cookie jar, and actually several cookie jars, right? Make sure I get
Appears
right
to be
one.
so.
And you could have, all the people there. I mean, I'm not saying that I thought he was a straight up and down Eagle Scout. I don't, but at the same time, I didn't really get a lot of, especially early on in the investigation. It felt like if of all of them, he was shooting about as straight out as he could.
Well, he's the one that said, I talked to Steve. I don't think he's involved.
Yeah,
that's right. He did.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
When him and Link went out there,
and
he talked to one of the Herman brothers early the next morning. Yeah, I don't think that guy's involved. Hey, but did you see that? Did you see the boyfriend that Scott blowed on? Man, he looked at the ground and couldn't get his eyes off of it.
Yeah. So even if he wasn't involved in a conspiracy in Stephen's case, he certainly should have had suspicions about his fellow officers, what was going on.
Well, yeah, I think so. Especially in certain events that took place, I should say. Not knowing how heavily he was involved in, in the Cuss Road affair, and actually even leading up to Cuss Road, there are other things that happened, especially on the 5th. He says he wasn't inside the trailer when
Brutus was there.
Yeah.
Why would he say that? I mean,
I don't know.
Well, the problem.
What would the difference be?
The problem is that he's the very first one that went inside Stephen Avery's trailer, had noted blood, right? Had noted blood. And then after the cadaver dog went in there, guess who went back in? Remiker. Colburn and who else?
Tyson.
And they started collecting swabs, right? So isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
So I wonder why Brutus didn't hit on. I mean, there was like blood drops on the door frames or something, right? And
yes,
I'm guessing.
I wonder why Brutus didn't hit on those.
Could have been.
Well, I think part of the problem is that we don't have a documentation of exactly what Brutus hit and where. Nothing has been sort of written down. My understanding is that he was taken into the trailer. And he alerted in the bathroom laundry area, had no alerts in the bedroom. But normally Julie Kramer will write up a report to say, look, he alerted here. We didn't find anything, as in Brutus could have only been in the trailer for a few minutes, just a cursory examination. So there's minimal information about what he hit, where did he hit, did they find any evidence of blood? And of course they did. Remiker, Lenk, Colburn, Tyson, whoever was in there, they did swab at various places for blood. Correct.
Yeah, that is interesting. Anyway, as everyone can see, this was filed on November 4th, which was literally just a few days ago, 2024, in Manitowoc. It's probably in here, and I've just not seen it, but we know Remiker was with MTSO for. He'd been with him for several years when he joined in the Halbach case in 2005. He'd already been there for long enough to be a detective, so he'd been there for a minute.
Yeah,
Yep.
I forget.
Yeah,
How long?
All of that information is actually in his court transcript. So if we ever do a deep dive into Remiker, it's all there. It's all there.
Yeah, I'm for some reason I'm thinking that he joined in the early 90s, mid 90s. Anyway, we'll get to that.
Well, he was born in 73, so it was 73 or 4.
Yeah, so that'd put him at 21 when he joined the department.
Yeah.
I think that's right. But I think we got somebody else here. There's Sunshine Christina. Boom.
Oh, right.
Hey, Sunshine.
Hey, Christina.
Hey, Sunshine.
Shalom, shalom. I was looking for the link and then I got distracted by that DCI report and realized that I was late. So I went from being early to late. See how quick that happens?
Yep.
It can happen in an instant. I found that out today because StreamYard didn't want to load. Anyway,
All
right,
is that what happened?
Yeah, it didn't want to load because it's just a link. You just that's a third-party streaming software, and if it don't load, we can't stream. So.
Yeah, it throws everything off, doesn't it?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So, all right, let's get to it. This is an 11-page indictment on Remiker, and we can split up the duties here reading. Susan, would you like to start us out here?
Sure. Let's see. Complainant. Oh, where? Okay, Kevin Stuke, an assistant DA for Brown County, special prosecutor for Manitowoc County, being first duly sworn on oath, deposes and says that misconduct, office, fail, perform known duty. Known duty is one word. The above named defendant between January 1 of 2019 through January 19 of 2024 in the city of Manitowoc, Manitowoc County, Wisconsin, in the officers or employees capacity as such officer or employee intentionally fails or refuses to perform a known mandatory, non-discretionary, ministerial duty of his office or employment within the time or in the manner required by law, contrary to section 948.12.1 Wisconsin statutes, a class 1 felony, and upon conviction may be fined not more than $10,000 or imprisoned not more than 3 years, 6 months, or both. Class 1. Like Nan's Life said, misconduct of office, that's disgusting. Complainant is an assistant DA with the Brown County District Attorney's Office, special prosecutor for Manitowoc County, and knows of the above offense on information and belief based upon probable cause. The complainant being duly sworn on oath, swears that he has had the opportunity to review the police reports from Special Agent Wallacey of the Wisconsin Department of Justice, Division of Criminal Investigation, and other documents supporting this complaint referenced herein, which are the types of reports and documents kept in the ordinary course of business, which complainant believes to be truthful and reliable because they have proven to be truthful and reliable on numerous occasions in the past. The complainant further asserts that based upon his review of the referenced reports and or supporting documents, the incidents alleged occurred in the city of Manitowoc, Manitowoc County, Wisconsin. Complainant has reviewed numerous reports and documents provided by Special Agent Khadija Wallacey and summarizes as follows. Special Agent Wallacey, hereinafter SA Wallacey, was assigned to investigate missing funds from the Manitowoc County Sheriff's Office, specifically as it relates to the Asset Forfeiture Fund. Wallacey was made aware that the MTSO Asset Forfeiture Fund had funds that were missing and or unaccounted for. SA Wallacey was provided information that the suspect for the missing funds was identified Lieutenant David Remiker, date of birth 1973. Wallacey met with Sheriff Hartwig of MTSO. Sheriff Hartwig indicated Remiker was employed with MTSO for 31 years and spent the last 15 years supervising the Manitowoc County Joint Drug Unit, hereinafter Metro Drug Unit, a multi-agency unit that included Two Rivers Police Department, MTSO, and the City of Manitowoc Police Department. Sheriff Hartwig indicated on January 19, 2024, he received information that on the previous day, January 18, 2024, Remiker attended a basketball game in the city of Oshkosh while off duty. Remiker removed a seat cover from a seat he purchased tickets for. Video surveillance and ticket sales of the seat identified Remiker. Sheriff Hartwig was notified of this incident by the Oshkosh Police Department. Sheriff Hartwig met with Remiker on January 23, 2024 to discuss the incident. Remiker admitted to taking the $40 item in Oshkosh, and he indicated he would return the item. Remiker was placed on administrative leave while MTSO conducted an internal investigation of the conduct. This all happened because he stole the seat cover at a basketball game.
That's right. That's crazy how the ball got rolling here. Just crazy.
Turned himself in.
And we were pretty well about right. I said back in the early to mid 90s that would have put it 31 years, 1993. Boom, got it.
Good job. So he was like 20 years old when he started.
Yeah, basically.
Sheriff Hartwig also disclosed to Remiker that an audit on the buy funds would be conducted because Remiker was responsible for the disbursement of the funds. Remiker told Sheriff Hartwig that he needed to put something back. Sheriff Hartwig denied that request. Upon denial of the request, Sheriff Hartwig indicated that Remiker got down on his hands and knees and begged for us, Sheriff Hartwig, to let him make it right. His request was again denied, and he was escorted out of the building. Remiker was provided the official letter regarding his administrative leave. On January 24, 2024, Sheriff Hartwig received a letter from Remiker announcing his last day at MTSO would be on January 31, 2024. He gave himself a week.
Yeah, let's ponder this a minute, because now he knows he's in deep doo-doo.
Mm.
right? Got done
Well,
in his hands. And, I mean,
Well, so far, I mean, they're only going to audit the buy funds, which,
Uh-huh.
but he's got to know he's in deep doo yet.
absolutely.
I got a question.
Yeah.
What pointed law enforcement to the video of him taking the seat?
It was
Why?
Well, I'm
why-
sure,
What did
I
that
am-
come out of the blue?
I imagine that seat cover, I mean, does it belong to the stadium?
I would say it belongs to the stadium. Yeah,
yeah.
So they would notice it's missing.
yeah.
and
But
just,
what I'm trying to get at is what prompted law enforcement to check the surveillance video of the stadium and specifically focus on Remiker taking the seat.
Someone tipped him off.
Yep. Yep.
And I find that very interesting when there's this effort to have us all believe that they're all squeaky clean and no one cares anymore, because clearly there are people who do care about truth, justice, and doing the right thing. And what's interesting for me is this shows that Remiker thought he was protected, because why else would he do that wide open like that if he
Well,
thought
sounds
he
to me-
wasn't going to get in trouble?
Sounds to me like he, pardon my French, but he pissed someone off and they said, okay, how about this?
Yeah,
well, I'm a little confused because I thought I just read that it was the stadium people that
Yeah.
looked
can
at
scroll back.
the,
I can scroll back up if you want.
yeah, would
yeah,
you?
let's have another look.
Because I don't think he was turned in by anybody. I think they noticed the seat cover was missing and they looked at their video to see who the hell was sitting there and who took it. But
Here,
It's further up. You have to scroll up.
Yeah, that's as far as I can go.
no,
No, I mean, as in, sorry, down. I'm from the land. Sorry, guys, I'm from the land down under.
my sister does that too, and she's not from there, but to her, like, what I consider up is down when we're scrolling. So you're not
you know
alone.
what? You know what? Because on a Mac, it's the other direction when you're scrolling a page
Yeah.
on the mouse.
All right, hold on.
okay, it's in the third paragraph here.
Here?
Hartwig,
Oh, there it is.
yeah. On January 19th, received information that on the previous day, Remiker attended a basketball game in the city of Oshkosh.
Okay.
Remiker removed a seat cover from a seat he purchased tickets for. Video surveillance and ticket sales of the seat identified Remiker. Hartwig was notified of this incident by Oshkosh Police Department. So I just
Okay.
think that the
So
people that,
what we need to do is we need to get a copy of the police report from Oshkosh.
Should be able to get
Yeah.
the video too. Should be able to get the copy of the video too.
Yeah. Well, I don't. Yeah, I would think so, because we don't know who. We don't know how.
Or who tipped off Oshkosh Police Department?
Yeah, they're
Why?
probably-
Yes. So we need to figure out what the narrative is to Oshkosh, which
They're probably not
opened
gonna-
the investigation.
Yeah, I would imagine they're not going to tell us either. That's going to have to come out at a later time.
Well, they don't. They may not want to tell us, but if there's a police report by law, we are entitled to it.
Well, I don't disagree with you.
Yeah.
Just say-
To
And
me, this
and Fallon ain't on this case.
not yet. Anyway,
not yet.
not yet. He will be. To me, it seems a little bit suspicious here, guys. This item is $40, right? And one would think, all right, that's a bad decision by Remiker. It should have all, in my opinion, it should have been done as an internal review and cleaned up behind the office wall per se. The mere factor that this has now become an entry point for further investigation into missing funds, I find that hard to believe how one led to the other.
The segue doesn't feel right, does it?
No.
Doesn't me.
So
Remember,
no, go ahead.
I was going to say, Jack 61 will know because we covered the Nick Hillary case. And remember what law enforcement did? They actually went to Nick Hillary's school with a video camera and they videoed him walking around to try and prove that he had a limp.
Yep.
So I have an awful feeling that Remiker was being watched.
Yep.
Well, how dumb can you be to steal that seat cover when everything's on camera and you
Yeah.
paid for that seat?
Yep.
You've gotten away with way worse crimes, so you think you're untouchable. That's
You think
why
because you're a cop,
like
you
it.
can just take it?
Well,
yeah.
you don't have to be a cop to think that way. Take
Yeah.
it from me. You don't have to be a cop to
That's
have
true.
that type of thinking.
That's
We-
true.
I know plenty of people who think that they are out, they're untouchable, they're protected, they can do
whatever
what
they
they
want.
Yeah.
Which is
So-
interesting
Mhm.
because Mark Wiegert took this spare wheel tie cover home.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you did.
On the
Just
road.
before it was even put into back into evidence at queso, he just takes it.
Yep,
He
these
just
guys
has
are
a fetish for
untouchable.
those kind of things.
He could well
Covers.
be. Covers. Yep,
Yeah.
the covers.
Anyway,
It's just there's so many, we can do hypotheticals and theories. I have a couple of theories, like why he would do this bizarre thing, that this right here, like in particular, because it's such a random crime to commit.
it sounds like he's got something
risk it all
at home, like on a boat or something. I'm throwing this out there that he thought, shit, this will go right over this seat that I want to protect. Blah blah blah. This is cool.
Or
Thanks.
yeah, or it could just be like, we don't know, because we know that he's played sports, because I can remember, like,
That's-
in the case he had to leave, he had basketball practice or something. Remember, there's a phone call
Yes.
talking about he can't
Yes.
work or something.
Yes.
So I wonder if he was going to give it to a kid, if he was going to hang it on a game room wall, if he, there's plenty of like why, right? But the fact that he could have went and got one, he could have used his shield to ask how to order one. He could have legally obtained it, yet he chose to illegally obtain it, is interesting.
Nan's
to-
life figured it out. He didn't want someone to get his sweat DNA.
Yeah, right.
Funny.
Let me guess. If it was Stephen Avery who took the seat cover, it would have made front page news, right?
Oh, and every newspaper in the state of Wisconsin.
Correct.
Kansas Boxes says, was this story added deliberately? Yeah, apparently. I mean, I don't know. We don't know, this relationship between media and the police department. We don't really fully know how that worked out, but somebody sussed it out.
Well,
Yeah.
it's,
Because he also says it's interesting that this story wasn't suppressed.
yeah, that's what I find interesting, because
A
with
$40
his
seat cover.
ties, with his ties to the Stephen Avery case, okay, because he didn't have a leading role, but he had a pretty high up there supporting role in this case.
Oh, absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
He was
Yeah.
everywhere. He was
And-
everywhere.
I believe he testified in both trials as well, correct?
I'm
I've got
not
to
sure
check
if he
out
testified.
Brendan Dassey,
I'm not-
but definitely in the Stephen Avery.
I don't
Okay.
think he testified in Brendan's trial, but I could be wrong.
But he got in trouble with the Brendan Dassey trial, right?
Oh yeah,
For
for
the
the
jury- for
jury,
the
the
jury.
pizza party.
Yep.
Yeah,
Correct.
The
Mhm.
pizza guy. Yep,
So,
that's right.
so the upshot of all this, before we continue, is that he's got issues with administrative duties, and it stems from a long time back.
And recognizing that rules are meant to be followed, and
Yep.
for an officer to not respect laws and rules and all of that, it's interesting, isn't it?
Yes.
Very interesting.
You know,
Well, again, as,
I wonder if this is what I wonder. I wonder if, because Kathleen Zoner's a bulldog, okay? She doesn't take on cases to look bad at the end of them. She just doesn't. You know, I know there's a lot of narrative out about her. A lot of, you know, a
well,
mixed
of course,
reviews.
there's ego. There's definitely ego involved. There's no doubt. But I don't
But
hold it against her.
but she's winning $30 million settlements for people. So she
Yeah.
has the money to spend, and she knew going into this it could be a long game, right?
It's
Oh,
a long
yeah.
game. Yep. It's a long
And
game.
and so does she have people in place? Is she paying people to just keep their eyes open, offering, you know, we know she put up $100,000. So does she have other, like, we just don't know. We don't. But I would have people spying on the real bad guys in this case if I was trying to get my innocent guy out of prison.
Well, again,
if-
though, the other side of that, if he's been head of this drug task force for how many years? 15 years? He's
Yep.
made enemies. He's made enemies.
But he was in narcotics bureau before he became a
Yes.
detective.
That's right.
A lot of them.
Yep. And how many other innocent people has he put in prison wrongfully? Because
Yeah.
you just continue to make enemies when you operate in that realm, you know?
Right.
And one day you're going to get someone who is capable of exposing that. And they get, you know, people get complacent. They believe they're smarter. They believe they, you know, they got it all figured out. They believe they're untouchable. They believe, you know, all of those things. But the truth is the truth. And I'm just grateful that there are people in positions. And see, that's the other thing. That's why I think that whoever tipped them off is someone they could not silence personally. So
Maybe.
because they don't want this out there. They just had convicting like really go in their favor, at least on social media, right? You know,
Wow.
it seems to have like,
Well, it certainly galvanizes several on the
Yes.
other side for sure.
yes. And
When was he actually arrested? Was it just this month? Wasn't it?
I think so. Well,
Was it just last week?
I think this was filed on Halloween.
this was filed
Honestly.
on this was filed on the 4th. What it says up top.
Well, that report is dated Halloween. Yeah. Where this is what we're reading.
We're probably going to find out here more on the document. Like I said before,
Yeah.
last night, I'll skim the document. So anyway, so Remiker here at this last paragraph that you read, Susan, Hartford got a letter from Remiker saying he's retiring on January 31st, 2024.
Yep. It's almost a year ago.
Yeah. So, I actually think this, I could have swore I read in here this goes back much further. Anyway, Susan, you're welcome to continue reading or pass the baton. It's up to you.
I'll keep going a little bit. It's pretty long, isn't it? This whole thing.
11 pages.
Okay. Sheriff Hartwig continued the audit of the buy funds by inspecting receipts, reports, and interviewing former and current members of the Metro Drug Unit. Sheriff Hartwig was aware that it was common practice to issue each unit detective $300 from the buy funds. It was ultimately determined, based on Sheriff Hartwig's audit, that the fund actually had $300 in extra monies in it. Upon coming to this conclusion, and prior to the official retirement of Lieutenant Remiker, Sheriff Hartwig requested that Remiker come back to duty in an administrative capacity for 3 days in order to train Lieutenant Brett Oswald and investigator Andy Beck, who would be taking over Lieutenant Remiker's position. Remiker was agreeable to the terms and did come back for the time period of 1/29 through 1/31/24. This agreement was solidified in an announcement on MTCO letterhead.
Can I just butt in here?
Yeah.
Sure.
You know that was a brilliant move by Hartwig.
Mhm.
You know why he did it?
To try and
No.
catch him at something.
No. He wanted to make sure that Remiker understood the rules and regulations on how the money is distributed correctly by training two fellow officers to ensure that Remiker understood the rules. And
that
that's
makes sense.
And you see, in effect, what Hartwig did was hand rope to Remiker to hang himself, because then the argument would be, well, wait a minute, you just trained two fellow officers on the correct procedures on what to do. How come you never did it?
Yeah. There you go.
Right.
That was brilliant.
Yeah, it was.
Mischievous, but brilliant.
Well, true, but
During the audit of the buy funds, which were located in a locked safe, Sheriff Hartwig did locate evidence bags containing seized monies inside. The bags were correctly labeled with associated MTSO case numbers and easily identifiable as seizure money. Sheriff Hartwig noted that the bags should not have been placed in the buy fund safety box, and instead either should have been in the locked MTSO evidence room or deposited as money acquired from an asset forfeiture, which should have been turned over to the county business administrator. Not knowing the details on where the accurate location for the evidence bags should be based on case specifics, Sheriff Hartwig turned the bag over to Lieutenant Brett Oswald for him to submit the bags back into the locked evidence room. Sheriff Hartwig stated that prior to Remiker coming back on January 29, Sheriff Hartwig was made aware from investigator Andrew Beck that during his audit of the buy funds, he determined that the funds were short $208. On January 31, 2024, Sheriff Hartwig brought Lieutenant Remiker into his office prior to him leaving the building for the last time on his retirement. At that time, Sheriff Hartwig advised Lieutenant Remiker that the audit of the drug unit buy funds revealed that they were short $200. Lieutenant Remiker advised Sheriff Hartwig that he believed that they should have only been short $8, as he purchased a tin of chewing tobacco using his buy funds and had not had a chance to pay it back. Lieutenant Remiker then asked if he could pay the $200 back out of his own pocket if they were really short. Sheriff Hartwig advised Remiker the reason that he was being notified was not for the purposes of him paying the money back out of his own pocket. It was instead to keep him aware of the status and the findings. Hartwig stated after the conversation with Remiker in his office, Sheriff Hartwig had walked somewhere else in the building and then come back to his office a short time later. When he arrived at his office, he found two $100 bills on his desk. Sheriff Hartwick advised Wallace that he believed these bills to have been from Remiker.
Oh boy. Oh boy.
But you know what else he did, right? He got Remiker to admit that he was taking money from the funds for his own personal use.
Yep. Where was the $8?
Yep.
Hartwick
Wow.
told Wallace that after the discrepancies with the buy funds that Remiker was responsible for, he became concerned about other financial responsibility assigned to Remiker during his time as the commander of the drug unit. Hartwick described the process involved when seizing asset forfeitures to Wallace. Sheriff Hartwick indicated money seized during law enforcement investigation was inventoried and placed in bags in the locked evidence room, where it sat until it became eligible to be released and appropriately dispersed per MTSO police and state of Wisconsin law. The funds would be removed from the evidence room, checked and retained by Remiker with a written report associated with the transaction. Remiker would follow Wisconsin law in order to calculate and determine the percentage of funds that would go into certain accounts and allocation funds. Finally, Remiker would transfer custody of the money and fill out a deposit slip to the Manitowoc County Business Administrator, who would then enter the deposit slip, document the transaction, and then turn the money and deposit slip over to the Manitowoc County Treasurer. Sheriff Hartwick indicated Remiker would have independently managed all asset forfeitures and did not report any other member of MTSO administration on the transactions. I'll let somebody else take over.
Doc, you want to read from that?
Yeah, I could read.
Read for as much as you want and turn it over, or whatever you want to do.
I can read for a little bit. That'd be great. Sheriff Hartwick stated Lieutenant Brett Oswald looked through Remiker's workstation and overseeing the administrative duties previously assigned to Remiker. Lieutenant Oswald noticed a possible discrepancy in the movements and activity involving the asset forfeitures. Sheriff Hartwick was told that there were evidence bags that were found in areas accessible by Remiker from cases years ago that should have been deposited and documented. And there were documented deposits of money that were supposed to have been taken care of in a certain year that were checked out of the evidence room, but were not deposited until years later. Lieutenant Oswald and J.J. Goodman ran a sample of 5 cases that should have been deposited into the Asset Forfeiture Fund. The 5 cases sample led to $5,735 unaccounted for. S.A. Wallersley met with Lieutenant Oswald and J.J. Goodman. Lieutenant Oswald stated Sheriff Hartwick disclosed that he had opened the safe containing 3 quantities of currencies that were associated with different MTSO cases. The MTSO funds were used specifically for the purpose of control by usage in the Metro Drug Unit. Lieutenant Oswald and Investigator Beck went through Remiker's workstation where he located quantities of money that were associated with MTSO cases, which were later placed back in the evidence room and made notations with the appropriate reports. Lieutenant Oswald and Investigator Beck did a purge of Remiker's documents that were deemed no longer necessary. However, during the purge, Lieutenant Oswald discovered empty evidence bags associated with MTSO cases and at one point contained currency seized during cases. Lieutenant Oswald also discovered documents associated with MTSO cases in what he believed to be original deposit records filled out by Remiker.
Oh boy.
Lieutenant Oswald also provided information to SA Wellesley regarding currency found in the safe by Sheriff Hartwick on January the 24th, 2024. Sheriff Hartwick located 3 quantities of money totaling $2,104.71. The first quantity of money located in the safe was $485, associated to Manitowoc County Case 11CF130, that the case was closed and the defendant was now deceased. Lieutenant Oswald located 2 emails to Remiker which indicated the property associated with the case, except for the $485, was destroyed. Lieutenant Oswald found the USC associated with the case checked out to Remiker on October 24, 2023, for the purpose of being deposited into the MTSO contraband fund. The second quantity of money located in the safe was $603.71, associated with Manitowoc County Case 11CF131, which noted the defendant was deceased on October 25, 2021. Lieutenant Oswald did not note any sort of civil forfeiture initialed in the case, but located an email in Remiker's desk indicated the property minus the $603.71 was destroyed. Remiker checked out the money on 10/24/2023. Oh dear.
Oh boy.
The third quantity of money located in the safe was $1,016, where the original seizure occurred on November the 14th, 2016. On January 5th, 2017, the suspect in the case filled out a transfer of assets form, and a report was authored by Remiker indicating the funds would be appropriately dispersed. According to the property detail receipt, the funds were released to Remiker on October 24th, 2023, with a disposition of civil forfeiture noted.
Probably should pause here. Pause here for a second, because we got three instances here where money's been found in the safe, and we got some weird shit going on, pardon my language. But for those, and I don't know how it works in other countries, but civil asset forfeiture became a really big deal, and it's something I railed against publicly, vehemently, because of
me too.
Oh my God, it is so. In some areas of the country, I haven't looked into it lately because we've been busy with everything else. But in some areas of the country, it's so bad. These county governments and city regulations, they would pass the most insane stuff. Like this one story, just brief. This kid, he wasn't a kid, he was 21, I think, 20, 21, whatever. He had moved out of his parents' home. This happened in Pennsylvania. I think it was Pittsburgh. He moved out of his parents' house and I think going to school, whatever. Anyway, he ended up living back at home. But while he was out at college, he began selling heroin to supplement his income instead of, having a job. Or maybe he did have a job. I don't remember. Anyway, he moves back to mom and dad's house and continues his heroin selling business. Well, the local cops, eventually they zeroed in on him, arrested him, and took their house.
Whoa!
And we're not talking about a shack. We're talking about a large, 5-bedroom. The parents worked out. Parents worked all their life. They were working people. They took their freaking house, and they had to spend, I don't know how much to finally. I think they finally got it back, but God Almighty, civil asset forfeiture has to follow certain local, state, and then federal laws, and a lot of times in these instances, again, for those that don't know, what will happen, especially in a county bust, sometimes even in a city, they bust some drug whatever but they have help from the feds, and so the county and the federal will split that money up depending on what whatever they set up for that area. It's just a freaking. I mean, to me, it's just a racket. Hey, look,
It is a racket.
I agree that drug dealers should be stripped of their whatever, but it's become more than that.
Well, it shouldn't be personal income for the officers to take at their will.
No, it's not a freaking ATM.
It's an ATM machine, and so
Right.
so the issue is, look, okay, you need to seize the drugs, you need to seize the proceeds of those the drug sales, but it's got to be used in a judicial manner. You can't have an officer in charge of the drug unit deciding whatever he wants to do with either the drugs or the proceeds of those drugs.
That's
Because
right.
that leads to corruption and all sorts of nasty shit. So you've got this bizarre situation whereby the police are arresting the individuals who are selling drugs or manufacturing drugs, seizing their assets and profiteering from their racket.
That's right.
You see the conflict here?
Huge conflict.
So in effect, the bizarre, sorry, Jax, as well. In effect, the bizarre thing is, hey guys, okay, we know what you're doing is bad, but just keep it up because we're profiteering from your proceeds. You know what I mean? This is ridiculous.
Well, it becomes more about seizing their money than actually
Yes.
worrying about the what drugs they're putting into their city or whatever.
Correct.
You know what Remiker sounds like to me? He sounds. Am I unmuted? I don't even know. Yeah.
No, I hear
ya.
you.
We
All
get
right.
it.
So I think Remiker either has a gambling addiction or a drug addiction.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah,
money.
that's
addiction.
what I'm
He's got to
thinking.
feed a habit. He's got to feed a
Yeah.
habit.
Yeah,
Or
he's
money.
got an addiction of some sort because you
money
do
addiction.
not conduct yourself like this. You do not keep money around like this unless you need it in a pinch and you need your wife not to know about it or your spouse not to know about it. And you know what I'm saying?
It's their personal
That's-
pity. It's their
This
personal
right
pity.
here, yeah, this right here is someone that's got an addiction. Being and theory, just a theory. He's played sports his whole life. He's worked undercover drug task force. It's either going to be gambling or it's going to be pain pills. Just saying. Probably got bad knees, all that comes along with it. And when you're undercover like that, you see how people who are not as active as you have more energy or do, you know what I mean? It's real tempting. Or you just go to the doctor and you get a doctor writes you a script for some perks. And then next thing you know,
You're stuck.
yeah, you need them. You ain't got them. You need to have money. And it's very common to have a couple of dealers that you let slide because they slide your way. And if Hartwig is a straight up guy and he heard about any of that, it would be on his radar. And do you remember her name is escaping me, but there was a woman a while back who did a video who said that Remiker tried to get her set up, and she swears she saw the blue rag. You could tell she had struggled probably with addiction
Yeah.
Remember
Yeah,
that?
that was Annie, not Annie.
It
I know you're
was
talking
what's
about.
her face's who was the
Yeah.
lady? Dadgummit. It's been so long.
Yeah.
Anyway, she did the interview. She would hang out with Carla, or Steven's cousin. Yes. Kim Ducott and
What's her name? I know who
what
you're
is
talking about.
yeah. She's got a YouTube channel. She's got some pretty interesting stuff.
Say it
It
again,
just
Susan.
popped in my brain, then it popped right back out.
Her brother died a brutal death in the foster care system up there.
Yeah.
And the coroner, she's got her own horror story about dealing with these people herself. What is her name?
Where does Remiker come into it? Courtney. Courtney
Yeah.
Skinner. Courtney Skinner.
Courtney Skinner. So
Thanks,
Courtney Skinner had an interview with a young lady
Had several.
Anna.
Anna.
Yeah, Anna. I think you're right. Actually, good call.
Well, I said Annie. I said Annie, but it's Anna.
Oh, okay. All right. But so there's an interview with Anna on her YouTube. I don't know if it's still up or not. And they did a series of just interviews with people who have had uncomfortable and downright scary interactions with cops in Manitowoc and Calumet. And Anna had gotten it. I forget why she did something. Maybe she got caught in an undercover buy or something, and they wanted her to snitch, and they brought her into a staging area where they would, run through, this is how it's going to work, and then we're going to wire you up, or we're going to give you the money, and you're going to go get the, whatever. And she swears that a RAV that looked like Teresa's was in that garage area.
Sallyport. Yeah, I remember that.
Sallyport. Yeah. And that Remiker was the one saying, you don't want to end up like anybody else, or however. This is not verbatim. This is just what I recall about it. And that's the kind of, her story becomes more believable knowing this, right? Because that's how you conduct yourself when you're doing this as well. Like, you think I don't know. It wouldn't surprise me if most of what Anna said isn't truthful after hearing this, to be honest.
I'll tell you a couple of things that I know that I was told, not directly from Zellner, but from somebody that was close to Zellner, may still be for all I know, that, listen, I'm not putting this one way or the other, so please, anyone out there listening to what I'm going to tell you, don't be insulted by what I'm going to say. Please. I'm only repeating what I was told. That KZ was told about all this that, Christina's talking about. It does sound very interesting, but I was told that KZ sent her investigators to dive into this, and there were credibility issues. I'm just telling you what I was told. I'm not saying that.
Yeah, I'm sure there is, because he's a cop and she's got a record. That's the credibility issue.
Well, I think it was more than that, but again, I don't know all the details of what they looked at. I don't. So
right.
You could be right.
But I mean, all I'm saying is, looking at it now, knowing what we know through this report, it lends more believability to Anna's story. Does that make it true? No. But right. I know how dirty cops operate. I do. I've been around them. I do. And if they thought having a RAV that looked like Teresa's as a stage prop would get people to snitch other people out, they would
Awesome.
do that.
Awesome.
They would,
Yeah.
because they don't have a moral compass. You know what I mean? Like, to them, anyone who isn't in law enforcement is not one of them, not human, however you want to fill it out.
Well, it's all about the risk reward. You know, what are they trying to do, and then how risky is it, and could they get discovered? But you know,
Yeah.
looking at what part of what Doc just read, looking at they're going through his files and they're finding evidence bags in his files that were empty. Really? Why would he do that?
One of them's marked 2011.
Right.
Yep.
It's-
It's
And
historical.
money all over his workstation.
Yeah, you don't
That
conduct.
goes back to years ago. What-
Yeah.
Right.
And 2011 is around the time Anna was, like that. That's like that time frame too. It's just interesting. Very interesting.
Well,
I
we'll
wonder
see.
when George Zipper's grandson passed away.
It was when was that, Susan?
Oh gosh.
2019,
Yeah, interesting.
2020.
Somebody in chat might know.
It's been in the last 5 or 6 years,
Yeah.
maybe
Yeah.
even sooner than that.
And do you think they only went back 5 years because it's the statute of limitations?
Oh,
Or
that
is
I
that
don't.
when-
Hopefully we're going to find out more as the case unfolds, because
okay.
I don't know if there's a 10-year. I don't know what it would be, but
There wouldn't be a limitation on that.
I wouldn't think so, because
Mm-mm.
this is a different kind of thing. I don't know. Anyway.
Yeah, I don't either.
All right. We do have a few questions. I've marked them. So, Doc, if you want to continue reading, that's fine. If
Yeah,
you want
love
to pass stuff, okay, please do.
I'll read one more section. Yep.
Okay.
I was just going to make the comment. What was the name of that lady who was doing the drugs in the laboratory, sampling the drugs, taking the drugs, and she had evidence bags underneath her
Duke.
desk? Duke.
Annie Duke.
Yeah.
Dukes.
This is very interesting because there are parallels that
Yeah.
the more you do this, the more slack you become in your duties, and the more that things pile up. And this is exactly what they found with Remiker, of historical cases that should have been dealt with on a monetary basis a long time ago, but were just accumulating and piling up everywhere. The same thing was happening to Annie Ducan, I think, where she had drugs, evidence bags in her car. Remember, they were strewn everywhere. They were strewn
Dozens.
everywhere.
Yeah.
It would be interesting to get his employee file. It wouldn't surprise me if he hasn't been to rehab. I don't know if that's protected by HIPAA, but it wouldn't surprise me to find out that because of his connection to the Stephen Avery case, that they have given him multiple opportunities to, to get it together, because the press of not getting it together could be, could cause issues. And they finally, someone, it would just be interesting to see what is in there, if anything, how sanitized it is.
This also reminds me of that cop in Florida that was planting drugs on people, that got convicted, I think last year. In the trunk of his police cruiser was full of all kinds of stuff that he used to plant these drugs, different little things of drugs and this and that. It was just in the trunk of his car.
Oh yeah.
Well,
remember that guy? Oh,
yeah,
geez.
but here's the problem that I foresee. Guess who was the evidence custodian in the Stephen Avery trial?
Remiker.
Remiker.
Yep.
He was in charge of the evidence. To me, that's a real concern. And I agree with Sunshine Christina. I reckon Kathleen Zellner's got her antennas up.
Well, you know she does. Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. All right.
As
Would you
I
like me-
says, can the public obtain Remiker's disciplinary file?
Yep. You're correct. Would you like me to continue reading?
Yep. Whenever you're ready, up.
Sure.
Okay. Lieutenant Oswald located additional currency in Remiker's desk. Lieutenant Oswald located $971 found January 25th, 2024, that was associated with a drug-related arrest, quote, 21121, end quote. Lieutenant Oswald observed that the United States currency, USC, had been previously inventoried into MTSO evidence along with USC $2,104.71. The $2,104.71 was checked out of the evidence room in order to be returned to the owner. There was no record of the $971 being checked out of the evidence room, and no indication of a civil forfeiture process being initiated. Lieutenant Oswald resubmitted the $971 into MTSO property and estimated that the USC was in Remiker's possession desk for approximately 2 years and 10 months by the time that it was located by Lieutenant Oswald. Lieutenant Oswald also located an additional $4,714 in USC found in Lieutenant Remiker's desk. It should be noted that the currency was located in increments of $4,000 and $714. The funds were originally seized on June 27, 2022. And the original seizure amount was $6,714. Lieutenant Oswald observed that in Manitowoc County civil case 22CV262, $2,000 of the original $6,714 was awarded to a male associated with the original case. Lieutenant Oswald observed verification that the currency was indeed turned over to the male. The remainder of the seized currency was awarded to MTSO drug unit for forfeiture. The currency was released to Remiker on January 12, 2024 from the evidence room in order to be appropriately dispersed.
Wow.
All right.
Okay. Christina, you want to read for a minute? Is
Yes,
Christina
I'll
here?
read. Yep, I'm
Read
here.
read as much or as little as you want.
Okay. So where am I at here? Hold on.
Bottom of the page, Lieutenant Oswald.
Lieutenant Oswald found an MTSO deposit
No,
slip
No,
for the amount.
No. Bottom of page 4.
Okay. Oh, Lieutenant Oswald found additional documents in Remiker's desk. Lieutenant Oswald located an MTSO drug unit deposit record slip stapled to an evidence bag for $210 that was to be deposited into the Metro Contraband account on November 20th, 2023. Lieutenant Oswald checked the MTSO software for the deposit amounts and did not find anything. Lieutenant Oswald found a police report with $800 U.S. currency asset forfeiture written at the top. Lieutenant Oswald found that there was a default judgment in that case that awarded $800 and that the $800 was released to Remiker on February 24th, 2021. Lieutenant Oswald searched the internal records for the deposit amount and again did not find anything. Lieutenant Oswald found an MTSO deposit slip for the amount of $582.30 to be deposited into the Metro Contraband Fund and $1,358.70 to be deposited into the Metro State Forfeiture Fund, dated December 21st, 2020. Lieutenant Oswald found a court order for $1,000 to be returned to the defendant. Lieutenant Oswald found documentation that the entire monetary value of $2,941 was released to Remiker from the MTSO evidence room on February 19, 2021. Lieutenant Oswald checked all MTSO accounts and did not find that the amount was deposited. The $1,000 for the defendant was deposited into the correct fund on March 2nd, 2021. Can we pause for a second? Does anyone here do March Madness or that stuff enough? I feel like this is basketball. Like all these dates where the money is kind of being played with have to do with college playoffs in basketball. I could be wrong though. So if someone can think on that while I read. Lieutenant Oswald provided Special Agent Wayuse information that he discovered about unaccounted for funds in both the Metro State Forfeiture account and State School Fund Metro confiscated money for the years of 2017 through 2023. Special Agent Wayuse checked those account ledgers when searching for deposit amounts and did not locate any of the currency that was listed as unaccounted for. Special Agent Wayuse further discovered that while most currency was deposited within a day or two of the final civil forfeiture judgment filing, there were a few cases when the currency was released from evidence in the following month or in the next calendar year. In parentheses, Special Agent Wayuse did notice that the deposits that were made in the following calendar year were typically awarded in the month of November or December. Close parentheses. Special Agent Wayuse did check the preceding calendar year for deposits related to awards granted late in the year. Special Agent Wayuse created an audit process where she would reference the forfeitures and the account ledgers for the year and would compare it to the QuickBooks record to verify the deposit date and determine what happened to the unaccounted for funds. Special Agent Wayuse noted the unaccounted for funds as for each account in each year as follows. 2017, $5,312 total unaccounted for. Metro State Forfeiture account had a total of $3,086.20 unaccounted for. State School Fund Metro confiscated money had a total of $2,225.80 unaccounted for. In 2018, $580 total unaccounted for. Metro State Forfeiture account, $406 unaccounted for. State School Fund Metro confiscated money account, $174 unaccounted for. 2019, $1,900 total unaccounted for. Metro State Forfeiture account, $1,330 unaccounted for. State School Fund Metro confiscated money account, $5,070 unaccounted for.
570.
Yeah, $570 unaccounted for. Thank you. 2020, $1,500 total unaccounted for. Metro State Forfeiture account, $1,050 unaccounted for. State School Fund Metro confiscated money account, $450 unaccounted for. 2021, $4,620.77 total unaccounted for. Metro State, $3234.47 unaccounted for. State School, $1,386.30 unaccounted for. Of note, $1,500 associated with 20 CV 81 was located but never deposited. 2022, $882 total unaccounted for. Metro State forfeiture account, $617.40 unaccounted for. State school fund Metro, $246.60 unaccounted for. 2023, $727 total unaccounted for. The Metro State forfeiture account, $508.90 unaccounted for. State school fund, $218.10 unaccounted for. As part of the investigation, Special Agent Wayuse attempted to locate the unaccounted for funds. Special Agent Wayuse drafted multiple warrants as subpoenas for Remiker's personal banking records for the years 2017 to 2023. After comparing missing fund amounts with Remiker's banking records, Special Agent Wayuse did not locate any of the unaccounted for funds or evidence that the funds were in Remiker's banking records.
Can we pause for just 1 second before you
Yep.
continue? Why did they only go back to 2017? And he's been over this task force for the last 14, 15 years. At minimum, to me, you got to look at all of it. That's me.
They probably will.
Well, that is 7 years.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
So I wonder when Hartwig became sheriff. One.
I don't remember. But
Yep.
we can easily look that up.
Yep. And I wonder if it's like Susan said, 7 years, or if it's new, new sheriff in town kind of thing.
Maybe. Hopefully more would come out, as this goes forward. I don't know. Go ahead, Doc.
Do you want me to give you a total of how much that is so far?
Please.
Unless my math is wrong. $15,521.77 unaccounted for.
Yeah, and that leads into, this became a problem when, these large drug bust seizures would take place. That, we see this actually played out in these dramas, law enforcement dramas, where, they immediately bring in trusted people before X, Y, and Z gets there to sit on the money. I mean, literally sit on it before it's seized and taken and disappears down a black hole.
Yep.
Well, I don't want to throw out anything out there that's innuendo, but now we get into exactly what I said, going into these houses to seize drugs and money and whatever else. What amount of money just gets pocketed right there on the spot before it's counted, right?
Way more than 15 grand. You can bet on that.
Well, I mean, if somebody's going to get to this length, I just don't get it.
This is going to be what undoes the Fulton County mess in Georgia as well. Is this right here, the forfeiture asset, like misappropriation and mishandling of money.
Their cases.
They're going to try the same thing, sloppy. Yeah. They're going to try and use lazy, sloppy, all of that. But at the end of the day, you're responsible for it, and you know better.
What culture set that up? I mean, Hartwig came in. We can look it up. I'm sure somebody out there can look it up quickly when Hartwig became the new sheriff. But what culture was in Remiker's mind that he could get away with doing this? And who else in the department is involved. Anyone? I'm not saying there is. There may not be, but
The problem is that there was no checks and balance on this money.
That's right.
And they did no audits on
No
this
audits.
money.
That's right.
And so, I mean, he had an open,
Yeah.
It's a free for all.
Yeah. I don't think anybody else had to be involved in this. I think it's just him.
Well,
You
there may not be. There may not be.
You know
Yeah.
why? Because nobody else wanted to be a part of the shit show. It was probably a hot mess when he took it over, and it was easier just to leave it alone than to try and make sense of it. And they're stealing, in their eyes, they're stealing from criminals, right? They're stealing
Right.
from people who don't deserve it anyway.
Right. They're just
They
stealing from
deserve
somebody.
it.
So they're
Yeah,
selling
I
drugs.
deserve
So,
that.
yeah.
I deserve it. I'm the one. It's all from that. It's not fair. I deserve it. They don't need it. It's that you can make a list of excuses a mile long for why
Sure.
I shouldn't get in trouble for it. And it all starts with, I don't need to follow the rules because I've gotten to where I'm at so far by not following the rules. So why should I start now?
Well, that goes back to the culture.
Yeah.
Some sheriffs won't tolerate any of that crap. They will not tolerate it.
Yeah, it goes back to what they've been doing to people like Stephen and Brendan for as long as they've been doing it, right?
Well, yeah, Doc.
So, and that's what breeds this, is that kind of law and order. And there's nothing there. That's not justice to me, because when you've got citizens who can't be truthful and tell the truth because they're afraid of stuff like this, then people and families like Stephen and Brendan's, and who knows how many others. And honestly, we don't know what happened to Teresa. So her family very much could be a part of all of this as well, as you know what I mean? Like, they're victims too. This kind of law enforcement creates more victims than it helps.
Oh, no doubt. Doc?
Yeah, I was going to say, there are multiple issues here. I have no problems in the distribution of the funds that are seized from criminals that go to the relevant people. The problem is that Remiker is not paying out. The money is not reaching the appropriate funds. And that's why they're going, okay, we've received all this money. It should have been distributed. I can't find it.
That's right.
Right. So all these funds that require it, in other words, it's a legal justification to pay those funds from the forfeitures. They're not receiving that money. So they check Remiker's bank records. And of course, he's smart enough. He's not going to leave a trace in his bank account.
Of course not.
Right.
Well,
so either,
he doesn't want it in his bank, because then is he married? Is he paying child support? Is he paying alimony? You know what I mean?
yes.
He wants money that nobody knows about, right?
There's ways around. There's a ways around that. Having, second cousin Jim Bob, who's you're really tight with, open up a safety deposit box, and they may never find it. Right?
Or
I'm just
keep
saying.
a stash in your house.
Yeah. That's right. Open up a wall.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I think
build
he
yourself-
probably did with it.
Make yourself a little shelf inside that wall.
It depends on whether his wife was part of it, or if he was,
I doubt that.
if she's as in the dark as the rest of them were. Another thing is, I would be curious to see how much money was flowing through there, right?
Yeah.
Because they're only auditing, they're only reporting what didn't add up. So,
Well,
how much
his
was
case, his cases only. They've not mentioned any, because is he the only one that's responsible in that department? I don't know that. That's a good.
Yeah,
good
that's
point.
what he says. It's all on his shoulders.
And
all
so So how
And
much
that's
was
his
he playing with
excuse.
every year?
That's his excuse, that he's very unorganized and he just had too much work with his other job and this on top of it. And he's unorganized and couldn't keep track and blah, blah, blah. It's like,
Yeah.
that's an excuse. That's,
Except
I
they
think
can't
it's,
find- they
I
can't
think
find
it's
them.
control chaos. So if he ever did get caught, he has this excuse that he's just so unorganized that, you know,
But that's no excuse, because it's a
No.
it's a dereliction of his duty,
yeah,
right? It's
if
a
he couldn't
dereliction.
handle it, he needed to, hand it off to
Report it.
somebody else.
That,
Let him know.
that's 100% correct. But remember,
Get some more training. But
Yeah.
it's simple bookkeeping. I mean,
Yeah.
I could do this. It's not that
But-
hard.
no, but the worry here, guys, is that, look, let's be real. $15,000 is loose change to the drug industry. That's probably what, an afternoon's taking? That's nothing. So it goes to show, is this just the tip of the iceberg?
Right.
Hey, that's what the worry is. How far does this stretch back? And
Well, do we know how long he had this position?
14 or 15 years. I think he said 2010.
Yep.
He took it
Okay.
And
over.
he was in narcotics before becoming a detective. Most of those officers that were in the Avery case had a role in narcotics.
But I mean, handling the money, dispersing the money.
That I do
etc.
not know. Yeah,
I
that
think
I
it said. I think it said at the beginning what Hartwell said, but he took the drug task force over in 2010. He would have been the man.
Okay.
So I would be curious to know how much is coming in a year on average. Like, are they seizing 100 grand a year? And also, one of the things that I have personal experience with is being pulled over by officers, or I know people who have been pulled over, who the officer, instead of creating reports or doing any of that, upon finding something that they had an interest in, like everyone going their separate ways, with the person being pulled over with a lighter load. Does that make sense? You follow what I'm saying here?
You mean underreporting the amount of drugs and money seized?
Exactly.
Yep.
Exactly. So
You want-
all of that comes into play, because if you're stealing, if you're openly stealing, then you're
Yeah.
also stealing on the sly. And they were using QuickBooks, Susan. Like, QuickBooks? Seriously?
Right.
Well, I mean, it's good software. I mean, it's from Quicken, and I used Quicken for years, and it worked great for me. I mean, of course, it's just home finance, but
Yeah, no, me too. But I'm not running the sheriff's department either.
yeah, but QuickBooks is it's commercial based software. So, I mean, I've
But-
never used it, so but clearly he wasn't either.
Well, I think what Sunshine is getting at, it's only as accurate as the input that you put into the system,
No,
right?
no doubt. Yeah.
You know what happened in the 70s, right? In New York, there was a documentary in which the cops were raiding the ghettos in New York, and every time that there was a raid, between 15 and 20 cop cars all of a sudden stopped what they were doing and all went to the ghettos where the drugs and cash were found.
Money.
And the reason why they were doing that is exactly what Sunshine Christina stated. So if they found, say, a kilo of cocaine and $100,000 of cash, this is in ghettos, mind you, they would report it as 500 grams of cocaine and $20,000 of cash. They would turn that in. And what the officers were doing was subdividing the cash and putting them into envelopes and paying each of the officers off And you know what they were doing with the excess drugs?
Selling
They
them.
were selling it to rival drug gangs.
Oh,
Yep.
yeah.
They're making
But
a double
listen,
profit.
It is very common, very, very common. Your upper level drug dealers in cities, and I'm not, this is not me making this up. The ones that never go to jail are the ones who tell on everybody else, and they pay off the drug task force. Very common.
Yeah.
It probably happens
Yeah.
in every town, at least in America, in my experience. They can now, like especially in bigger cities where there's a lot of drugs, it's par for the course. It's like you're always going to have cops on the take. You're always going to have COs in prisons who are hustling, making extra money. I mean, how many times do we see them get caught doing it? They're not doing it because it's not profitable. They're doing it because it is profitable. And it's just how it is.
Well, the issue is that it's self-serving, isn't it? If this is the big problem of widespread corruption. It's self-serving because you think about it. If there are no drugs and no drug dealers, there's no steady source of drugs or income. And as people have said on the panel, there's a justification by the law enforcement officers saying, well, we deserve this money. You get it? So it's self-feeding.
Sure.
We can't remove all the drug dealers and the drugs, otherwise we're not having a steady flow of cash.
That's
So
right.
it's a horrible situation whereby, yeah, okay, we're going to seize your funds, we're going to seize your drugs, but keep at it. Because if we stop the chain, we stop the market, that means that we're not getting any of this money coming through our departments. And a lot of these departments are underfunded. Do you understand? They're underfunded and they're reliant on this income to keep things going, to keep the lights on.
Well, and then you also have now the pharmaceutical industry is trying to cash in on it legally. So you have in your Western states where they are it's legal to do drugs. They have, they provide the drugs. And I'm talking about hardcore drugs, not marijuana anymore. Now they're giving out like heroin and stuff like that in places like Seattle and a couple places in California. And because everybody thinks that money is more important than right and wrong. It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. When I heard it is legal. Not only is it legal, not only is it no longer illegal to shoot heroin in public, they are now providing the heroin. I was just like, wow, this world's just getting far out of control way too fast.
Heroin is a Schedule II narcotic.
I agree.
No, it is. By the FDA, that's felony.
I agree. No, it is an illegal drug. Heroin is illegal.
Yeah, illegal.
Unless you're in San Francisco, Portland, Seattle, places like that, and you have an addiction, and yeah, you can go get it and do it and all that.
Interesting.
I didn't believe it until I confirmed it.
All right.
It's just, but if the pharmaceutical industry is profiting off of it, and they can get people who because it's all about the narrative, right? If you can weave a fantastical story of how this will benefit society, and you have someone who can get it put into a bill form and get it passed in the right area and get government funds allocated to help with it and then profit off of that, it's crazy. It's absolutely crazy, but it's truthful.
All right. You want to continue reading, or you want to pass the baton?
I don't know. Susan, you ready to start back up?
I'll read for a bit. I haven't read
Okay.
anything. All right. On July 10, 2024, Special Agent Woloski interviewed Remiker at Remiker's residence. Remiker acknowledged during his time as the commander of the Metro Drug Unit, he had various administrative duties, which included several financial responsibilities. Remiker indicated he was in charge of the Metro Drug Unit buy funds, and he described the process issuing money to officers during their investigation that Remiker would keep track of on his own spreadsheet. Remiker, what the hell? Remiker also described his role and involvement with federal and state forfeitures. For the state forfeitures, Remiker described the process of dispersing funds. Remiker would review the case and discuss with district attorney about the case being referred as civil forfeiture. Remiker indicated the case would be filed with the courts within 30 days, and if he decided the case was suitable for forfeiture, he would have the paperwork within 30 days. Upon conclusion of the associated criminal case, the decision will be made on the civil case. Remiker would receive the judgments and was then responsible for figuring out the quote-unquote splits according to the judgment. Remiker stated that the money that was awarded would be money that I've lost my place here. Remiker stated that the money awarded would be split between the drug unit and the quote-unquote school fund. For amounts of $2,000, 50% would go to the drug unit and 50% would go to the school fund. Amounts under $2,000 would be split 70% to the drug unit and 30% to the school fund. Remiker indicated he was solely responsible for calculating the split to be dispersed in the two accounts. Remiker indicated he would take the money that would be kept in evidence the entire time out of the evidence room and would either try to have another officer with him when he took the money out of the evidence to count in front of them, or he would take it in the sealed bag to the HH and count the money. I don't know what the HH is, and count the money in front of her. Remiker said it wasn't a standard procedure that he didn't always follow, but he would try to when it was feasible. Remiker would fill out the deposit slip with each account on it with the associated county account numbers and turn the deposit slip to HH, who would turn it over to the treasurer. Remiker would then fill out the Department of Administration DOA reporting from that was required at any time a state forfeiture was seized from drug proceeds. Remiker indicated the process changed throughout his time, and he had a lot of training on the new process, but he felt like it was not enough. Remiker indicated he had to figure it out on his own and had trouble justifying the expenses associated with the seizures initially. Remiker stated he tried to reach out to people to help him, but he did not have a great understanding of the process. Remiker tried to keep up with the process, but did not always do so. Remiker acknowledged that he had to file a civil forfeiture on a drug proceed case within 30 days, but he was unaware of any time frame in which the currency needed to be transferred to the corresponding parties after a judgment was ordered. Remiker said he tried to keep up with the state forfeitures and that some were very old by the time the judgments were ordered. Remiker stated he knew he had fallen behind on this duty, but the responsibility was a lot. Remiker also noted the difficulty to get currency to defendants, but he did the best he could. Remiker said he was aware of one case in which was to return $2,000 to a female associated with a drug case, where he knew that the money was sitting in his desk for years and never got to transferring it to her. Remiker indicated at times juggling all of his duties would become overwhelming. Remiker also indicated that he would take money out of the evidence and put it in the safe where it would sit. Remiker told Special Agent Woloski that he did not have any sort of spreadsheet and he was supposed to report. He did not have any sort of spreadsheet and he was supposed to report the funds generated through the asset forfeitures quarterly. So that wasn't audited either. Remiker indicated he relied heavily on the software to keep track of the records and admitted it was not user-friendly. Special Agent Woloski indicated to Remiker that she looked at some of the quarterly reports and not all of the forfeitures were reported correctly or not reported at all. Remiker indicated the software was difficult to use. Remiker also indicated that he used to be more organized, but all his other duties had overtaken were a lot to handle. Special Agent Woloski asked Remiker about the records found at his desk, which included deposit forms, and that some were never appropriately deposited. Remiker advised that sometimes what he would do was fill out a deposit slip form for the HH and then fill out another one for himself to act as a reminder. He stated that HH would have the original forms on file. Remiker stated that to associate a deposit with a case, he would usually write the case number on the bottom of the deposit slip, which he also did with his duplicate slips that were for his memory purposes. Special Agent Woloski asked Remiker if he ever received a QuickBooks receipt from HH after he made a deposit with her. Remiker stated he could not remember. He did not believe so. Remiker further advised that the previous business operations manager, BOM, B-O-M, prior to HH had a different procedure. He stated that he believed that the HH's method was a lot more paper and more detailed to record the events. Special Agent Woloski advised Remiker that she had received a list of civil forfeiture judgments ordered within a certain time frame, and in reviewing all the details related to those cases, she noticed that some of the currency related had been taken out of the evidence room, but never deposited. Special Agent Woloski asked Remiker if this was normal, to which he replied, quote, "Yeah, stuff would sit there," unquote. I should have lost my place again. Stuff would sit there. He further stated, quote, "I used to be extremely organized. That job really kicked my ass. It was a lot," end quote. Special Agent Woloski further informed him that her investigation had revealed that there was approximately $15,000 that had been ordered and released from the evidence rooms that was unaccounted for. At hearing this monetary value, Remiker stated that this was absolutely not possible. Remiker stated, quote, "I have not taken a penny from those accounts," end quote.
Can I just make a comment?
Please.
He's in deep trouble.
Oh yeah.
Because essentially the buck stops. Pardon the pun. The buck stops with him.
No doubt.
When I in my job, and I promise I'll be really quick. One of my duties was to keep a record of all the marks that the students had when they were doing assignments and tests, and we had massive spreadsheets when it came to exam time. These spreadsheets used to contain hundreds of entries, and it had to be meticulously looked after and double-checked, triple-checked. Remiker was derelict in all of his duties. He's now blaming the system, as to why he had poor record keeping. And all he had to do, which he even admit that he didn't have, was a master spreadsheet of money coming in and money coming out and the case number. That's all he had to do. So with a spreadsheet, and Jack 61, guys, you do a simple formula that calculates the distribution of the money from one account to two others. That's it. All you do is when it changed over, you change one formula. It is a 1-minute job. Now, I've done thousands of spreadsheets with incredibly complex formulas.
Yep.
Are you trying to tell me that Remiker doesn't know how to get one number and divide it by %?
Right.
What?
It's so easy.
It is a 2-minute job. Jack 61, you're part of a business. You understand the importance of proper record keeping. So what used to happen is we used to have our master files, which then were given to our secretary. So what Remiker is saying is exactly what we used to do with our records, our school records, our all the marks, the grades. They go to the secretary, who then uploads them in the computer. He didn't keep the master records. He had no idea.
No
And
idea.
so the secretary could not give him a record because he never forwarded a record to the record custodian. So now you've got this money that's in the ether. It's missing. No one knows where it is. And he goes, oh yeah, it was too complex for me.
Right.
He's in huge trouble.
So
Yes.
is that only an excuse for these
That's an
missing
excuse.
funds?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's an excuse.
It made
Because
it look like he was completely disorganized.
correct.
In
That's
order
just like
to hide
that's just like
this.
me, yeah, that's just like me telling. Yeah, that's like me telling the 200 students, I don't know what your final grade is for this course because I don't know where all the marks are.
You didn't understand the
I didn't know how to put them in a
software.
spreadsheet. How long
Yeah.
do you think I'll keep my job? 2 microseconds.
Exactly.
Yep, that's
Wow.
not good. It's not good.
I can equate that. The business I used to work in, specifically this one facility, once certain things that we would run through our process because of the adhesive use had to go. We had a hot room, and when I mean hot room, it was about 135 degrees in there. It was pretty large. I mean, it was a self-contained room, but these products would have to go in for. There's some that were 7 days. There were others that were 14 days, depending on the adhesive and the product. So to keep track of that, as they came through this one specific process, they were marked. And what happened in our lab, the lab analyst would take and copy that, and
Yes.
they would put it in what
Another
we called a
record.
tick. Well, we would put it in a tickler file.
Yes.
It was an accordion file. Basically, this is how simple it was. It was an accordion file with 31 days divided up, and it would go into the appropriate day that it was to come out of the hot room. And so every shift that I would go in, each supervisor did it. But typically, because of the shift I worked, it was me that handled the bulk of it. One of the first duties I did would be to go to that tickler file. And if something was there, boom, I gave it to the tow motor operator, and they would yank it. It's just a simple process, man. It's
Yes. But with Remiker, it's worse.
much worse.
It's money coming in total,
Yeah.
money being distributed, 2 totals, and the checks done.
That's right.
Here's what I want to know. Why would Remiker take the cash out of evidence before everything was ready to be deposited?
That's right.
Get all your paperwork done, then you get the cash and make the deposit.
Boom, done.
Done.
That's right.
You don't get the cash before you've even done the paperwork.
No.
I mean,
Correct.
that
Correct.
makes no sense whatsoever.
Correct.
Unless you're short and you need it.
Yeah.
You think you can get away with it.
Yeah.
Well, that's not going to work. I think Doc is exactly right. Anyway, we've got some questions, guys. I'm trying to go through here as we're reading and highlighting them. I promise we'll get to them, but let's keep on. We only got a few more pages. I'll read a couple more paragraphs, and if Susan is ready, then maybe she can take us out to the end. All right, here we go. Special Agent Walewski then explained that in each case mentioned, the last chain of custody event documented revealed that the evidence number associated with the currency indicated that it was in his custody. Special Agent Walewski asked Remiker if, as a whole, regarding state forfeiture assignments, if he was able to keep up with it. Remiker replied that he did not. He did the best that he could, he did try, and that some of the circumstances were not ideal, as he would take the money out of evidence and it would, quote unquote, sit there for a while due to the amount of paperwork associated with it. Remiker requested that Special Agent Wallasey show him examples of which cases she was referring. Special Agent Wallasey did at that time allow Remiker to review several spreadsheets that she had produced strictly for the interview review purposes that outline the timeline for each case referenced. Upon review of the spreadsheets, Remiker advised that he would have to see more information in order to explain. Special Agent Wallasey advised that she would allow him to look at the spreadsheets for all of the years and had printed out 3 account records from the clerk of court record keeping system that indicated the deposits and financial activity related to the years in question. After a brief review of some of the documents produced by Special Agent Wallasey, Remiker advised that he would have to see more to explain. Special Agent Wallasey did ask Remiker what he would do specifically, what he would specifically need to look at, to which he replied that he did not know.
Stop right there.
Yeah.
He's screwed. You know why?
Totally.
He's got no intimate knowledge of the spreadsheets. He's got no idea.
Right. That's right.
But and just using my example again, when we would bring in spreadsheets when we have a meeting regarding the staff and looking at the results, often a staff member will say, right, this particular student, how did this particular student go in this section, that section compared to this? If you don't have an intimate knowledge of the spreadsheet and what it means, the significance of those values, you are totally screwed. Remiker,
Totally.
even though he looked at the spreadsheets, does not know how to answer this person's questions. You know why? He's got no idea. He's
Right.
completely clueless. He doesn't know about the money coming in, the money going out, where it's gone. He has no knowledge.
Well,
Oh boy,
does
this is good.
does that bring in other people, as I said earlier? I thought about that.
He says something very cryptic at the end.
Yeah. All right, Susan, you feel like reading some more?
Sure. Remiker advised Wallasey that he had never taken money from the accounts or that was supposed to have been deposited into those accounts. He further advised that he was not sure where the money would have gone. Remiker advised that he knew that the federal forfeiture accounts were ahead and wondered if some of the money had been deposited into that account on accident. He further stated that he knew that at times he would make deposits well after the judgment date, or in some cases would make bulk deposits. Remiker then mentioned that the federal forfeiture account was ahead $9,000, which was brought to his attention after his retirement by Lieutenant Andrew Beck. Remiker further stated that this account was ahead when he first took over as lieutenant in 2009.
Okay.
There it is right there.
Yep.
Remiker did not offer any explanation for where the unaccounted for currency could be located, other than it had been deposited in other accounts accidentally. He stated that it had to be somewhere, but was not sure where. When asked specifically where he thought it could have gone, if it was still somewhere, Remiker stated he believed that it could have gone to the federal forfeiture account. On July 16, 2024, Remiker called Special Agent Wallasey. Remiker advised Wallasey that he remembered that she was inquiring about unaccounted for sums of money that should have been deposited into accounts, and he wanted to explain his knowledge a little further. Remiker advised that he had a lot of responsibilities during his time as the lieutenant of the drug unit, and his situation was not ideal. He advised that he believed that the money that was unaccounted for may have been placed in envelopes that were kept in cabinets within the drug unit. Remiker stated he was not sure if all of the cases were in envelopes, nor was he sure which cabinets they were kept in, because he had moved offices a few times. You move a cabinet with all its contents, not.
Yeah.
Remiker stated that in his stress of retiring from the Manitowoc County Sheriff's Office, he did not have time to tie up all his loose ends, and the situation was not how he wanted to leave. He stated that when he had thought about retiring in the past, he knew that he needed at least 6 months to get caught up on tasks that were put to the back burner. Remiker stated that the last few days at MTSO, when he was assigned to train Lieutenant Beck and Lieutenant Brett Oswald, were mass chaos, and he believed that all that shit got cleaned out during that time. Remiker stated that what happened when he left MTSO was, quote, was a mistake that I will regret for the rest of my life. I can't even explain it, end quote. Remiker stated that he wanted Wallace to understand that his time at MTSO was not an ideal situation, and he did not have any assistance in his administrative duties, such as state forfeiture related work. Remiker stated that he thought that Wallace had him should talk about how things went at the MTSO on a day-to-day basis, as those were the circumstances in which got him so far behind. He stated that regarding state asset forfeitures, taking the money out of the evidence room was the easiest part. The rest of the work associated was more difficult, as it involved knowing how much of the awarded money was justifiably belonging to the sheriff's office, and eventually involved math in order to correctly split the money between MTSO and the school fund. Remiker stated that there were times that money would be sitting out or put in a folder assigned to a specific case and placed in a cabinet to allow him to fight for another day. See, that just makes no sense to me. Why take the money out? Why
Right.
take
If you're
it
not
out?
if you're not ready to deposit it, why are you
Why take it out?
And that's right.
Fight
You-
for another
You
day.
know what tweaked my interest? The money in envelopes.
Yep.
Uh-huh.
And the easiest part was
Hello.
going to the evidence room and taking anything
Yep.
out of it. Please.
Yep.
Wow.
Remiker stated that he could not recall if the folders were placed in the same cabinets or multiple cabinets, due to the fact that there were no deadlines associated with asset forfeiture judgments. Quote unquote, those were not important to me. He felt as if his other duties took a precedent because there was a time factor associated with some of the other duties. Remiker advised that due to the paperwork and detailed review and understanding of the civil forfeiture process that was necessary, he often did put those assignments on the back burner. He stated that Special Agent Wallace could check his training records, which would reveal that he did not receive training on how to handle the state forfeitures, especially as the laws and standards were ever changing. Remiker stated that he had recalled in the first interview that Wallace had mentioned deposit slips. Remiker stated that he wanted to make it clear that the deposit slips were essentially a worksheet that he had created himself to help him in his duties. He stated that the slips were in no way an official MTSO form, and the discrepancies, if there were any, were not on official forms. Throughout the interview, Remiker repeated the notion that he was not organized. And while he thought that he was the best candidate for his assignment, he was a good street cop and supervisor. He stated that many of his subordinates could attest to his lack of organization skills and would make comments about it to him. He further stated that the job as a whole affected him in a negative way, and he felt dissociated from conversations towards the end of his career, both in work and personal life.
You know what's going to happen, right?
Yeah, he's going to
He's going
blame
to end up
somebody
blaming.
else.
He's going to end
Yeah.
up blaming Ma'am.
Yeah.
Sam's fault.
Man's
Yeah.
fault. Yep.
Remiker stated that he knew that the discrepancies brought up by Wallacey have to have been a clerical error and that the money had to have been stored somewhere. He went on to say that he knew that the issue was brought on by his own actions and the fact that he did not have the appropriate organization skills to make him successful in his duties. He further stated that he was not attempting to offer Wallacey excuses, but that he truly wanted her to understand the gravity of all of his duties and responsibilities, and that no other officer at MTSO, past or present, was requested or assigned to the sheer number of duties that he had. Wallacey explained to Remiker that a big portion of her time had been spent trying to decipher if the missing money was an organizational error or not. As Wallacey was speaking, Remiker began speaking and he interrupted her and stated that the key for the buy fund safe had been kept in his desk drawer and that everyone knew where it was. Remiker stated he had never had any issues because of it, but it was not ideal because he was not at his desk all the time. Remiker then explained that Sheriff Hartwig had told him that the buy funds were missing $208, which had to have been a clerical error. Remiker advised that none of his important financial duties were ever audited. There we go. Which did not make sense to him. He stated that a lot of his grants were, but they had nothing to do with money. Wallacey asked if anything else was audited, to which he stated that the buy funds were annually. Due to the fact that Remiker had mentioned being able to review the specific cases again, Wallacey offered to schedule a meeting with him to allow him to review the cases which were in question. Remiker advised that since he had been retired, his mind frame was not the same as it was when he was working every day. He further stated that he was not sure that him reviewing anything that Wallacey had would be helpful based on his lack of recollection of specific details. Remiker stated that most helpful information for the investigation would be to search cabinets and binders for folders and envelopes that would contain money and case documents. Maybe have a look in your garage. Remiker stated that it would be in his best interest to continue to help Wallacey on his investigation by answering any questions. He further stated that he was unhappy with how he left MTSO and the situation that had to be cleaned up because of it. He further stated that it was, quote unquote, no one's fault but my own. Wallacey searched Remiker's office and reviewed contents of bankers' boxes. Wallacey located records relating to Remiker's administrative duties that included grant paperwork, federal forfeiture paperwork, copies of case documents, asset forfeiture request worksheets, judgments related to asset forfeitures, copies of deposited checks, case files related to specific asset forfeiture cases, seized vehicle paperwork, deposit slips, and additional items associated with Remiker's assignments. Wallacey also located several accordion folders and manila envelopes that had handwritten titles on them that had associated them with certain cases or certain aspects of Remiker's duties and the related year. The records dated back to 1991 and as recent as January 2024. Wallacey also checked the cabinets near Remiker's desk, but did not locate anything of evidentiary value. Nothing in the cabinets, really.
Yep.
On August 5th, 2024, Wallacey spoke with Remiker regarding follow-up investigation she conducted. Wallacey indicated no monetary evidence associated with the unaccounted for funds were located or recovered during the examination and discussed specific findings within documents, which included several folders mentioned by Remiker. Remiker was shocked that none of the unaccounted for funds were recovered. Wallasey notes that Remiker was assigned to handle the MTSO drug unit asset forfeitures, which included filing the initial seizure request paperwork through the Manitowoc County DA within 30 days, following up with the court process, and ultimately dispersing the seized funds in accordance with the court order. Remiker explained to Wallasey that after the judgment was ordered, the easiest part of the procedure was to have the evidence, in this case seized monies, removed from the evidence room. He loved that job. Remiker admitted that reporting and justification of the expenses was confusing for him. Therefore, Remiker would oftentimes perform his assigned duty of dispersing and reporting the seizure in a quote-unquote delayed fashion. Remiker was not aware of any deadlines associated with these specific tasks, so it was not made a priority. Remiker described himself as a derelict and disclosed he did not understand the forfeiture process as well as he thought. Remiker indicated the lack of deadlines, coupled with Remiker's admitted lack of clarity on the reporting process, were the reasons why seized monies would often sit, quote unquote, for a while on his desk. A few years in the cabinet above his desk, or placed in folders inside of cabinets. Wallasey was requested by Remiker to explain the specific Wisconsin state statute in which the investigation had been referred to, the ADA under. Remiker expressed confusion on how Wallasey had come to the conclusion that Remiker was the last person to have had access to the unaccounted for monies. It was then detailed by Wallasey how chain of custody was directly relevant to the investigation. This resulted in the following statements made by Remiker, quote, 100%, but you have to understand our process. I get it, bad on me. It was not a secure process, end quote. And, quote, bad on me, money is sitting on my desk in our office, open door, in and out, then up in a cabinet, which everyone had access to. I do not know how you can put that on me if it's missing. It was further mentioned by Remiker that he understood his assigned duty and had knowledge that the duty had not been completed when it should have been. Remiker attributed this to a lack of understanding of the full process, as well as his organization skills, once again, not having been ideal. Remiker relayed to Wallasey that he believed she had a, quote, high burden of proof if she took into account the unsecured nature of the various locations in which Remiker had been placing the seized funds after they had been removed from the evidence room. Remiker recalled a time when an iPad had gone missing from the MTSO and the whereabouts were not discovered. Remiker suggested that Wallasey speak with the MTSO maintenance employee and inquire how many times he had found the door to the MTSO drug unit office open. Remiker reiterated that he was not in possession of the unaccounted for funds, therefore someone else had to be. Knowledge of the specific whereabouts or person potentially in possession of the unaccounted for funds was not offered by Remiker, as he was not sure of the location and believed if he offered suggestions, it had the potential to mimic what he termed as a guilty person. Near the conclusion of the phone conversation, Remiker continued to inquire the status of the investigation, which was explained to him by Special Agent Wallasey. Remiker made mention that the referred charges were hard to hear, And while he was aware that he did not perform his assigned duty in a timely manner, he maintained the notion that he was not in possession of any of the monetary evidence associated with the MTSO asset forfeitures. Based on the foregoing, the complainant believes this complaint to be true and correct. Wow.
There you go. There
Signed
you
by
go.
Claire Mall, ADA, and Kevin Stoke, complainant.
Yeah, I'm not sure who Kevin is.
Said in the beginning, didn't it?
It might have.
I think he's an ADA out of Brown because they subbed the case out.
Yep. Special
Isn't it
prosecutor.
interesting? Yeah, isn't it interesting they chose Brown County for this, but not for the Stephen Avery case?
Well, he's
Yeah.
he's special prosecutor they brought in.
Mhm.
I can feel myself writing. I can already feel myself writing an open records request for at least 2 records right now. So we'll talk about that in a bit. But
Sweet.
wowzers, all I got to say. And I agree with Doc. He's screwed, completely screwed.
Yeah. He's going to be in deep, deep trouble. And he's giving the indication that, hey, it's not my fault. The door was unlocked. The key's in my office. So he's giving the subtle hint that anyone could have come in and taken the money, right? But the problem is that he's in charge of the proceeds. He's in charge of the money. He's in charge of the distribution of that money. It's like being a bank manager and not knowing that money is disappearing from your own bank and then trying to blame everybody else. The buck stopped with him. And so now this is going to have wider implications, because if they open this up to other cases in other years, it could potentially open up a greater investigation into corruption and fraud in the MTSO.
It's interesting. He had cases dating back to 1991.
Yep. Yeah, he was in narcotics back then.
Well, no, he didn't start till
91.
Yeah.
1991.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're talking.
That wasn't him.
Yeah.
He didn't start till 93.
Exactly. So what do you got in your office from 91? What do you got from in your office from 2003, 2004, 2005? Inquiring minds want to know, what are you keeping out of the hands of others so that it can't be documented and then requested and given? Like, well, what kind of filing system is this?
It was, I had the word for it. I think it was planned.
I think so too. I feel like this case is this is a very curious case. Very
like
curious.
Controlled chaos or something like that.
Yeah.
Not the phrase I want, but something like that.
So if it comes out that he has some sort of a drug or gambling addiction, and they're able to show that this was occurring at the time of anything to do with Stephen and Brendan,
Or potentially other cases that we don't even know about.
exactly. Yeah, not to mention those cases, right? But Stephen and Brendan's case. Is this a segue? Could this potentially, I mean, is Travis around?
No, really. I haven't seen Travis, but
Yeah.
Anyway, we're a couple hours into that. It was a good reading. Thank you all for taking part and reading a portion.
Travis was there last night in chat.
Yeah, he was around last night. He was chatting, but I haven't seen him tonight.
Yeah. No.
Anyway, You know what? I think instead of diving into the DCI records, because we're already past couple hours into tonight's open mic, I think what I'll do instead is show the photos that I got last week. We can just go through them. If there's any
Okay.
comments, some of these we've seen, some of these we haven't. And I'm going to do this from Google Photos. Let me get this added. Come on, there we go. And I put these in Google Photos. They're a little bit simpler to, probably go through. I mean, I've got several albums on Google's Photos, but these were, you can see these are listed. It's 5 roles, the top 5, 1 through 5. So we can just blow them up like this and go through them. Now, some of these we've seen, some of these we haven't. Right? So
I saw that you had made a comment about the metadata.
mm-hmm.
Are these like November of 05, last access November of 06, or are we reading the date as November 5th and November 6th? Have we decided?
No, this is November 10th and 11th. This is when
Okay.
Pevito and his team, including Special Agent Rindt, RINDT, went back to David Salvage Yard, and you can see.
Let me see how yours looks, because when on my metadata, all right,
February,
my metadata looks different.
February 9th, 2006 is what it says.
Okay. That's interesting, because it reads differently when I do that. I wonder why.
Really?
Oh, you know what? Okay, never mind. I know why. Go ahead. Because that's probably when I put it in my drive.
Oh, yeah,
and
probably.
And added a folder for it. That's what I'm looking at. All right. That makes sense. Okay.
So, yeah. And remember, I mean, this was actual film camera. They got scanned. So I can only assume that these were scanned by whatever machine on February 9, 2006. That's the only thing I can draw from it, right? Whether that's right or wrong,
Yeah.
I don't know.
All right. So let's put that, let's insert that into the timeline with Brendan. Where Doc, you're pretty refreshed on February 9th is when, like 3 weeks before the interview that gets him arrested, roughly?
Yeah. You're talking about Brendan Dassey?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Yeah, March 1st. He got arrested March 1st.
Okay.
Yeah.
So these were being put into the DCI narrative, perhaps, on that date?
I don't know.
Yeah, curious.
I don't know why they wouldn't have been scanned prior. Maybe somebody just hadn't turned the film over for whatever purposes. I don't know. We don't have any kind of working background knowledge that why they waited,
So
what, 3
does
months?
anyone else find it interesting that there's not reports with these with the film? Like,
Well, there is a report, but it's it's basically he took photos. So
right, but like Remiker was, or like Value was saying to Remiker, chain of custody. You got to explain why you're taking this photo, what caught your eye, what the where at in the investigation, why this, like, like, you don't just take photos and then throw them in a pile and say, here. I mean, this isn't B-roll for a movie. This is an investigation into the disappearance and death of a woman.
I don't know why Pevito. I don't know if he said, "Hey, Rindt, you need to," because you can see several of them standing around in a circle here. I don't know if he said, "Hey, before we get started, we need some photographs, and as we go through, you need to photograph." That's all I can figure from what we have.
Yep, that's what he said.
They've already started.
Yep, that's what he said in court.
Yeah, like I said, many of these we've never seen. I've had some comments, people asking me about the water bottles back here. All I can say is that somebody, for these guys to have something to drink, dropped off, a couple of piles of, packs of water, of drinking water.
And we're
Or
just going to
whatever.
put it in the burn pit that we
Yeah.
just found human remains in and
Yeah,
contaminate the crime scene because, that's how we roll.
that's right. I mean, several of these that have showed up, I've shown already. I'd never seen before. I don't know if others out there in the ether have seen them, but I sure haven't. Now, some of them we're going to run across.
Actually,
that.
that's a really good picture because from the perspective of the burn pit, you can see the kids' bedrooms in the Dassey household.
Yep.
See
Yeah.
the windows? And
Yep.
that's exactly where Blaine and Brendan went to sleep, and no one ever reported seeing a fire or smoke or smell coming from the burn pit. And that had a direct view to it.
Absolutely. Again, a profile picture of the 4 or 5, however many were there. That looks like bear.
And
That looks like bear. I know it's not, but
what's interesting to me, and I haven't talked about this, so if I have the tag number wrong, I believe it's 7923. That's the brown tarp, right?
Yeah,
Does that sound right?
I have to double check it.
Okay. So throughout this case, we have blue tarps, nothing but blue tarps for as far as the eyeball can see, except for the brown tarp used to collect what is labeled as the bones or the debris from that produced human bone fragments from Stephen Avery's burn pit. That is the only brown tarp in this entire case. And blue seems like a tarp that you would use in law enforcement, right? The men in blue, whatever. But if you were recovering a body that had been buried in a tarp and it was brown and you wanted to keep that evidence separate, you would just leave it in that and then put it where you needed it throughout the case, right? And then you would know you had the right tarp because it's the only one that isn't blue.
Yeah, well, with the you're correct. 7923 is the brown tarp,
And
but Duke is the tarp master. He would know all the colors of the tarps.
And it should be noted that the tarp used at Mickles Materials, we have no idea where it went.
yep. And it wouldn't surprise me if that would be. I just have a feeling that brown tarp's it's going to be another aha thing when we finally understand its significance in reality, not their narrative of it, but the truth behind it.
The origin of that tarp.
Yeah, many of these I've never seen before. In fact, most of these in this role I've never seen before.
Because they don't help them. They're not able to be, so I briefly went through these. That berm is so high. I did not realize the steepness of it.
15 to 20 feet above the ground.
Yeah.
Yep.
And it's so flat.
Do you notice the sun glare?
Yep.
There's a couple of pictures where you see a bit of glare on the vehicles as well.
Yep.
And it's Stephen's property is so flat that any sort of fire, especially one that they had Scott claim occurred would have been obvious to everyone. It would have been
Correct.
very memorable.
Yes.
This is roll 2, by the way. This one's a little blurry, on purpose or not, I don't know. See how clear a lot of these are, but the one of the guys is blurred out. That irritates me. Tower wire.
Yep. You know why it's all piled up like that, right?
Yeah, because Sturdivant raked it up there.
Sturdivant
Well,
raked up.
No, let me rephrase that. So if you look, if for anyone who's ever scrapped metal for cash, what you do is you burn all the garbage off, and then you put all the metal in piles, and then you clean it. And then if you clean it before you take it to the scrap yard, you get like 4 times the amount per pound, especially for like copper, aluminum. That pays really well, depending on what they're paying. It can pay $3-4 a pound versus like 30-40 cents a pound,
Especially copper.
Yeah, copper and sometimes aluminum's the same way. We
There you
took
go,
the
Doc.
load off a couple months ago, and my sister and I had just a bunch of metal. And then my brother-in-law, when he gets off work, he'll sit out there in his shop and talk and just clean stuff. And he had 2 5-gallon buckets, and he got $350. We had a whole trailer full of metal, and we got 80.
Gee.
This is interesting here, because Sturdivant raked this up on the 8th, and by the 10th, we got all this dried leaves blowed on it. That's interesting. What the hell? Stevens' yard doesn't really have any trees. I mean, living up here, I understand the wind can really blow, and it carries leaves. It's insane how that works.
Yeah, especially so close, right to the Great Lakes.
Yeah, it's really interesting. It was kind of like that in the South, but it's much different here. Anyway.
But here's the irony. You know whose job it was to take out the tire rims?
Brendan.
Brendan Dassey.
That's right.
Yep. He used to collect them.
I don't know what that is. Piece of something. The trowel. Lot more dead leaves there. Looks like some pine cone, or maybe that's tire wire underneath here. I guess that's tire wire.
Yeah.
Yep. See, all these dead leaves. I mean, I don't want to associate a whole lot with that, but man, that's a lot to have blown in his yard, and he doesn't really have any trees there.
They look like they're really old leaves.
They do.
Okay.
I don't know if that's a bleach bottle or.
I think it's a bleach bottle.
Yeah, I think it is.
And don't forget, Stephen had a swimming pool, so it could also be chlorine.
Could be. Yeah, could be.
It probably blew in there. It's probably empty. It was probably by the pool, and it blew in there with the leaves. And if he'd had a fire,
I don't know if that's Barb's rig or not.
These photos always make me laugh. These guys with their shadows.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
They take the picture with the shadows over everything.
Yeah. Move out of the way. Okay, that's the end of roll 2. Let's go to roll 3.
These are not crime scene photos. These are take some photos so we can say we took photos.
Yep.
Well, they've collected
now, what are
something.
these 3 cans? Yeah.
They've collected stuff.
That.
They heat these up and gas them, don't they, Doc? Check for gases and so forth.
Depends on what those cans are. It's hard to see what's in them.
Yeah, I can't. It looks like there's something in there that came from the pit, but that one.
I think the lid's
sealed.
on them.
Lid's not well.
You know what I like? I like how they put the gloves right next to them on the ground, not in
Right.
evidence bags. I mean, they're not even using their brain.
Number 3, whatever the hell this one is. We probably got it in another photo, I guess.
We've got it in the wherever that file is with the orange tags. Those are
Yeah,
those cans that are written on. It says what it is: ash
Yeah.
from Avery Burn Pit or something with the
That's-
ledgers. I've seen
that's
the
the Chrisman files.
Yeah.
Don't know who this is over here. Still the same 3 cans with the gloves. I don't know why so many photos that got took of that. Now here's an interesting one.
Here's the
Allegedly.
That
infamous
looks like
bones.
a Ken Kratz bone fragment photo
Yeah, but they didn't test any of them.
because it's not.
No, it's burn insulation. There could be bone that got tangled up when it was, laying in there, and it got raked out and got tangled up in these tire wires.
Well,
You know what I think that is? I think that's from the van seat. I think
That's
that
not a
it's
bone right there.
No.
No, I think this is, when they burn the van seat, that van seat's going to have that cushion in it.
Well, it's
The-
burn insulation. Yeah, foam.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there was a long set of jumper cables in there too that had insulation on, right, Doc?
Yeah, it's very interesting. Just a couple of comments. They recovered a whole box and they labeled the box bone fragments. And then Eisenberg looked at them and said, nah, these are all burnt pieces of insulation, right?
Yeah.
But the
I'll bet-
ridiculous
Go ahead. Sorry, Doc. I thought you were done.
No, I was going to say the ridiculous thing is that these photographs are absolutely useless. Why? Because there's no sense of scale. There's no sense of scale. A scale ruler to give you an indication of how big these fragments are,
Right.
and also to document that these fragments were isolated from the tire wire, and there's a chain of custody to say, I found these items right here. There's no chain of custody. These guys are just randomly collecting stuff. And furthermore, bloody Sturtevant rakes out the burn pit and leaves the tire wire there until the 10th.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, there's an issue here, guys.
Yep.
Bennett had already seen the bone fragments on November the 8th. So now you've got additional potential fragments that were discovered on November the 10th. What are they? What are those bone fragments?
That's right.
And why did they leave them behind?
Let me back up one.
This photo is hysterical.
We saw this photo in CAM.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
How did they get it before we did?
Well, I'm going to say those tire wire photos are the ones that the girl that was the truther turned guilter in CAM.
That's correct.
Those
that's
are the
correct.
ones she was talking about. I bet you any
Yes.
money.
Because they became convinced that there were human bones intermeshed with tire wire, indicative that
Minster.
Teresa Hallbach was cremated with tires. And if you look at them carefully, they're sprinkled in the tire wires. And Pevito was asked, can you tell me the origin of these bone fragments, how they got there? He goes, I can't.
Nope.
Including someone tipping them in. He
That's
could
right.
not distinguish it.
Something else notable about the last several photos. See these lights? They got generators and lights there. But Ertl and the team took off on the 8th like a pack of
I
scalded
was going to
dogs.
say that they could have used on the 8th.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
This looks like an
They were-
earlier one. These are not in order clearly. So it's clearly dark and has been in this photo.
Mhm.
This photo, it's light. You still see the lights have been turned on, but they're not in order.
I think it's dark. I think those are their lights.
Not on the sky up here. That's still light.
Well,
Not if the photograph has been artificially brightened,
yeah.
because look at the color of the ground. It looks really weird.
It
Yeah.
does look weird. It almost looks like it snowed.
Yeah.
It's
And I
probably
haven't
frost.
I haven't done anything to these photos. I have not altered
No.
them in any way.
No.
More tire wire looks like. flag pointing for something. I don't know what the hell that's there for.
You can actually see a couple of the insulation pieces on the ground. If you look very closely, you can see them.
Yeah.
And they look like a small bone fragment. Yeah, stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah, there's another one here. But, people that have chicken or beef, whatever, especially in the rural areas, that's what they do. They just throw it all in the trash and they burn it.
Correct. Discard it. Correct.
Here's one with a scale, Doc. Oh my God, they actually got a scale out, but it's so blurry you can't freaking read it.
Yep, correct.
This looks a really strange photo too. Look how white this is in here. I don't understand that.
Yeah, it's overexposed.
It looks like it's been altered. I noticed this immediately when I got them and was going through them. I'm like, what the hell's going on here? Okay, that's the end of that roll. Going back up here. I just wanted to make sure we were where we were at. Okay, roll 4.
Oh,
this
yeah.
This is over in Barb's yard, and it's going to get interesting here because I got some questions, Doc.
Hey, yep.
Sunshine. This is Barb's burn area.
She had 2.
Yes, she did. I'm not entirely sure what this is unless it's part of the
smelter. Looks like
I
the
was
smelter.
thinking that.
But it's cleaned out pretty good.
Yeah, that's the aluminum cans is what made me think it's a smelter, because what they'll do is they'll melt it all down into one block, I think.
Yeah, get ingot. Correct.
Yeah, but why would they insert that photo right here? Because they're in Barb's yard, Okay, here we go. Back to the smelter. And we've seen this photograph before.
That's the wood oven. That's not the smelter.
Right.
Blue tarp.
And lots of ash.
Lots of ash.
They use this to fire the boiler, don't they? Isn't that right?
Yes, to heat the residences.
Yeah. In the garage. Yeah.
Yes,
The
correct.
shop, I think.
Yes, you're correct.
We got a bunch of old junk showing the propane tank, which some of these we've never seen before.
No.
That's a big propane tank.
Oh, yeah. Showing how much percentage is in the tank. And
That's
hook
the
up.
smelter.
Yeah. There it is right there.
Yeah. And there was no evidence that it was used.
No, hadn't been used in a while.
No, stone cold.
Few cans in there.
These are probably Paul's cans, Miller, champagne, that bottle
Could be.
beer, can
God.
beer.
PBR, Platt Blue Ribbon. Hated that beer.
Ooh.
And then another propane, I guess this is the, it's either the propane tank we looked at earlier or a different one, but it's a big one.
That
Yeah.
is a big one.
I missed this roll somehow. I thought I'd looked through everything.
And then roll 5, again, it's only 12 photographs. It says, if you look at Rindt's report, the first 12 photographs are missing. So we've got 13 through 24. I don't know why. And this is basically on the 11th when they destroyed the pit. Don't know what this is. They've got it flagged up there, but no clue what it is.
It could be the berm.
It is the berm. And see how far that is down?
Yeah.
They're marking their way, so they make sure they stay on the path.
Back to Barb's pit. Who shoveled that out? That's clean.
That's interesting.
Well, I noticed that, and I'm not accusing anyone of anything, but what the hell, man? it's basically cleaned out. There's another photograph of it, even dug down.
I wonder if they picked the wrong pit.
I don't know. Here's part of a rake that's been broke off. Handle's broke. Y'all see that there?
Mhm.
Yes.
And then I guess this is the other pit. And this is interesting. I've been asked questions about what's all this here on this shirt. Is that blood? Is it oil? What is it?
I bet you that's what Brendan was talking about when he said they
Yeah.
used old clothes to clean up the fluid.
know.
It was probably stuff Jody had gotten rid of. Remember, Jody said that
Yes.
she had gotten rid of stuff. Also, here, all right, you played a snippet from a phone call last night, Doc,
Mhm.
when he was talking about Barb being in and out. Jody was going on about some clothes, asking about something. And I think what she was trying to figure out, because when you're in jail, you try and micromanage anything you can because you have no control. And I think they were carrying on a conversation, or they had started back on a conversation. Oh, I just saw that. Where they I think he used her clothes to mop up the transmission fluid, and she was asking him what he was using because she was afraid something she wanted to keep had been used. And I'm wondering if that's what that is.
Well, I'll tell you what, if they still got those clothing, it'd be interesting to test if there is transmission fluid. And wouldn't it be stupid and ironical if Brendan used these clothes to clean up the garage and then threw them in his pit, not Stephen's, because they're female clothes. They look like female clothes to me.
Christina, what they were talking about was a photo of Jody, and she was asking Stephen what she was wearing in that photo.
Oh, okay,
correct.
that makes sense.
She
That's
was
correct.
trying to place the photo, which one it was, and yeah,
You know
that's what
the
that was
story
about.
behind that is because they had a photograph of her at Crivets, and a couple of the boys were making
Googly eyes.
Yeah, correct. They were staring at her breasts.
Becca asked a question. Is that the fire pit? The one we're looking
Yeah.
at now is in Barb's yard.
That's Barb's.
One of them, one of the fire pits. She had two.
Yes, correct.
And, yeah. So anyway, I don't know what it is. I just know it looks like something dark, brown or red or maroon or something. It very well could be motor oil or transmission fluid. I don't know.
And they
Yeah.
were painting Stevens as well. You can see where it had been partially painted and partially not.
Okay. All right, let's move on. We don't have many to go. And then we got a few questions. Now, again, another photo of the fire pit with everything in it. And that is the last photo. That's it.
But this is really funny, because what did Brendan say? Him and Stephen cleaned up the yard. This looks like fresh stuff. This looks like fresh stuff that they've accumulated on that burn pit. You have a look at it. That's all fresh. That hasn't been there for months or years.
Right.
That looks freshly collected.
Yep. And as far as I know, I haven't seen a report on this. Maybe I've just missed it. Have you seen it yet, Doc?
No. No, I don't think I have.
Yeah, I know I haven't. So it's interesting. I don't know what to make of it. So anyway, okay. Well, I I don't think Zoe's got these in the library yet, but I know it's on the list. But what I'll do in the interim time, I'll probably leave a link to them to my Google Drive. I got them on there too. For anyone that wants to, grab them, download them, do whatever. I'll put it in the I'll put it below the show notes here, so anybody can get them if they want until we get them up in the library. We do have a few questions. Let's get to those right quick. I think we can get through these fairly quick. So this goes back to when we were reading several of them, reading Remiker's report. So let's get to that first. I'm going to hand the first question off to Doc.
Who has reported him? Yeah, that's an interesting question. You're talking obviously about Remiker. I don't know. In a lot of cases like this, a person who reports somebody else often it's confidential and the name's not released. But quite clearly, someone has been going through the bookwork and has found discrepancies. So when they're adding up the numbers in terms of money coming in, money being distributed out, things are not adding up. So I do not know who reported him, but I still find it very interesting that they focused on Remiker stealing the $40 cover seat, whatever it was. And then after that, this precipitated out regarding his bookkeeping skills or lack of. I have a feeling, Xenia, that this is just the tip of the iceberg.
Anyone else? Okay. All right. Susan, next question is for you from Candace Foxley.
Has anyone asked Dave Bagatka what he thinks this action against Remiker is about? No, I haven't.
Yeah, I have no idea.
Why. Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't heard anything. I haven't seen anything. No, admittedly, I haven't looked too deep into, what comments maybe on Reddit or Facebook. I haven't. Just haven't had time yet, so maybe more of that'll come out. Sunshine Christine, next question, if you could read it, please. It's another one from Kansas.
As well as addictions, how many of these MTSO law enforcement officers have things like swimming pools, saunas, vintage car? Yeah, your guess is as good as mine, Kansas, but I have a feeling that Remiker didn't do this in a vacuum. He did this because it was being done and it was easy to just continue to do it. And I think that everyone who actively participated in Stephen's case probably has profited in many ways from doing other things like that. And it would be curious. I'm going to go back to what Doc said and the original reason why this case against Remiker even began. I think that that's going to be the key to understanding why we're at where we're at with this and the potential that it could have for helping Stephen and Brendan.
Well, yeah, it's.
So here's a scenario. How did Kathleen Zellner find out about Stephen and Brendan's case?
Sandy Greenman.
Yeah, writing letters.
And then she got interested after ma'am.
She got interested because Ryan Ferguson told her to watch it, right?
Yes, I believe that's correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And who has a lot of money?
Kathleen
Ryan
Zellner. And
Kathleen
Ryan
Zellner,
Ferguson.
And Ryan, especially now.
Yep. And Ryan Ferguson knows what it's like to be done wrong by cops. and knows how important money is to helping get the truth out. Because if it hadn't been for his daddy, he'd still be in prison, you know.
Correct.
And
Correct.
I could see someone like Ryan thinking that getting the truth out there would be worth the money to invest in doing so. That's just my take on it. And not having a problem and putting his money where his mouth is to help. And money's going to, money being used to help people expose corruption is probably about the only path Kathleen's got to doing this, because they got the badges, they got the guns, and they know the law. So you've got to have people willing to take the risk of going up against that. And you're not going to do that unless you know that it's, the people who are trying to bring truth out are have the funds to do so. So.
Okay. Thank you, Christina. Yeah.
Can I just address Danny Burfan's comment at 8:17? And it was regarding the first question about who
Yeah, go ahead.
turned him in
Who
or whatever.
reported it.
He said, I thought the news article said there was an audit that turned up irregularities. But the audit was because he stole that seat cover at the basketball game. So I think they're talking about the seat cover, right?
Yeah, originally, yeah, that's what.
Well, the thing is this, right, Danny? Because Remiker was in charge of those proceeds and in charge of the distribution of the funds, what you normally do is you prepare a spreadsheet and you bring it up to the office, and they have a record of the transactions. So someone must have been going through the paperwork and worked out that things were not adding up, which then led to an investigation of what Remiker was doing. And now we've got a situation whereby Remiker cannot explain where the missing money is.
You don't think it was because he was caught stealing that made them look at him? That's what the sheriff said anyway.
Yes, but you know what? I reckon we know about 5% of what's happened.
Yeah, probably.
But you know what the problem is? It's now out in the open. This is not an internal investigation. It's now a criminal charge. This is
right.
deadly serious.
Oh yeah.
Well, it's interesting that the paper reported it because of audits. That's not what started all of this.
No.
They never audited him,
Oh, that's right. He even said it. Remiker even said it.
Yeah. They did audit the whatever those funds were to buy drugs with.
There was one that was audited on an annual basis.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
I remember that, but still,
but the sheriff did a special audit. Almost
really,
first,
really,
where he dug into the other.
It's a really sloppy procedure, basically non-existent.
Yeah.
And this is bad. I mean, what I see.
The example is Dracula being in charge of the blood bank.
Pretty much.
Kay says, hey, Kay. She says maybe Remy will feel picked on and start running his mouth.
I saw that.
Why am I getting into trouble? Everybody's doing it.
Well, he actually gave the hint. He gave the hint. My office is open. The key's in my desk. I've got no control over it.
Yeah, talk to the maintenance guy. How many times was the drug task force door unlocked, or he found it unlocked?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
But why did you get the money out of the evidence locker, which the other people don't have access to?
Yeah. And then leave it sit in your desk for years?
Right. Why would you do that, man? Put it inside of a
Aw.
cabinet that's unlocked. Come on, man. Anyway,
Oh, geez.
all right, I'll read this one from 3RAV4's. Any history of SWX 582 prior to October 31st? There is. And don't ask me right now to tell you where it's at, but I know there's a history going back to at least to when Teresa bought that RAV4, which was, correct me guys if I'm wrong, but wasn't that August of 2004? No.
I have to check the dot record, but that's available.
Yeah, it's available. Yeah, there is a
Yep.
history of it.
And there are places that you can go online, put in the VIN number, and it'll tell you everything about that car, who had a prior, etc., etc. There's a dot record.
You know, another thing that of interest, and this is just of interest, is that once again the DOJ's had to get involved with Manitowoc County into an investigation. I'm not saying it didn't happen in other counties in Wisconsin. I just know that it's happened at least twice here. So, anyway, moving on. Doc, you want to read this question from Corey?
Okay, did Manitowoc Police Link alert the prosecution to the blood vial Buting accused police of planting blood from? You know what? The MTSO didn't even realize they had the blood vial. They didn't even know it was there until I don't know how Buting found it, but and guess who had to do it? Oh, you're gonna love this one. Guess who had to do an inventory of all the evidence they had against Stephen in the 1985 case? You want to roll the drum? Guess who had to do an inventory? Remiker. Remiker. And Remiker goes, I know nothing.
I know nothing. I see nothing.
But it was Lenk that had his signature on the bottom of a form of the transmissal of evidence. That is correct. It was Lenk. But the MTSO did not realize that a vial of Stephen's blood was in the clerk's office in a container.
Interesting. All right, Susan, question from the Clark family.
Why are they turning on Remiker? I thought the cops protect their own.
Good question. Why did this become instead of an internal investigation? Maybe it was and turned external. I can't answer that. Don't know.
Do we have an honest sheriff in office?
Well, it's either that or there's another game afoot that we're unaware of. We just don't know yet. We may never know. We just don't know what internally is going on. We just don't know yet. We don't have enough information, I don't think. So, all right, next question is from another one from Kansas. Christina, if you could read this.
Which law enforcement officers and ex-law enforcement officers are getting nervous due to Remiker's difficulties? What does the panel think? If no one comes to mind, I'll suggest Ludvina.
I'm right there with you. I'm right there with you
Yeah.
on Ludvina because my dealings with him and what he did to me.
Oh,
he gave other.
You know, the whoever HH or whatever HH is that was on the other end of, you know, Remiker's duties there. Wouldn't they have some kind of idea of, you know, what's been taken in and what's
They should know
happening?
exactly. They should have. They should know exactly. Absolutely, it should be deposit slips.
Yes,
Right?
correct.
So, are they complicit?
It seems like from what I read, once HH came in and took over BOM's role, Remiker's system changed and they never really gelled. That's how I'm reading it. Like him and HH couldn't find a working relationship, and with the one before HH, it seemed like they had a system in place, and HH changed that, and Remiker didn't like it. That's kind of what I got from the report, but I didn't really. I've only read it through completely just now, but I was wondering if someone else was queuing in on that. One other thing I want to add is Remiker retired without thinking things through. When he retired, Hartwig and who took it over? I'm forgetting his name.
Beck and
Yeah, the sheriff and the other two guys went in there,
Oswald.
looked at that cesspool of an office, and Hartwood's like, oh no, he's not going to get out of here this easy. They probably saw a few things, and then they checked with HH, and HH is like, well, and they said nope. And that's when Hartwig got smarter than who he was working with, and said, you're going to come back in here and organize this chaos. You're not leaving it for them. It doesn't make any sense. And he came back for 3 days, and that's when he tried to fudge it to make it look less nefarious, but was probably knowing he didn't have the money to make it right and didn't know what he was going to do. And thought, well, what's the worst thing they can do to me? And left it, or didn't know where to begin because it's so bad. I mean, the way she's talking about the special agent, the work, it took her, I think she investigated this case for a year. It probably took 6 months of that just to make sense of his office paperwork.
Well, yep, correct. But here's the problem. Remiker can't remember any of this stuff. He's got no knowledge. He's got no understanding of the spreadsheets. So the person investigating would have got all the facts in front of them. And if you notice what was the person's name? Walksaw was doing was fact feeding a step at a time. Okay, Remiker, tell me what you know about this. I don't know anything about that. What about that? I don't know anything about that. Walsall has already got the answers. That person is testing Remiker on what he knows, right? And it's so bad that when he had to come back for 3 days to train those two officers, Beck and Oswald, he didn't know how to do it because he doesn't know the procedure.
How's he supposed to train him when he has no clue what he's doing?
That is correct. So he's been derelict in his duties. And that confirmed it. He's got no idea.
Okay. Yeah. Let's move on to the next question. Doc, I'm going to pass this one to you, then I'm going to read the last one from Kansas because it's directed at me.
Okay. Do any of the accusations against Remiker cross state lines?
Well,
I wouldn't think so.
Yeah, I wouldn't either, but some of this is tied to federal civil asset, Richard. So
True.
we don't know where that will lead.
True. That's true.
I don't know.
Did say
I
that.
don't, yeah, I don't know.
And isn't it true that some of the people that own money still haven't received the money?
Yep.
Yep, sitting for years.
Some have passed away, so that would have to go to their heirs if they have any.
Yep.
Yep. This last question from Kansas is directed at me. He said, Jack, what products? And he's talking about me talking about the hot room. And basically, I worked in, I don't know, you're not going to understand this probably, flexographic and rotogravure printing and lamination. Basically, it's packaging for, especially it did cross over a little bit into some, regularly commercial stuff, but most of the stuff at this one facility was medical packaging that held like IV bags, and so it's pretty complicated how this material is basically laminated or glued together. Most of it is multiple different substrates, meaning multiple layers passing through various machinery. And most of them used some pretty crazy adhesive. And I say crazy, I won't say that they're not really rare, but they're not really common in like regular food packaging, like for potato chip bags. That's flexible packaging, which is mainly done on flexographic printing presses. Anyway, this process of these adhesives, they'll dry on their own, but it would take, something that would normally take 7 days in the hot room at an elevated temperature would probably take 2 to 3 weeks if you just left it out in the air. And the stuff that had to go in for 14 days, it would take it a month and a half to completely cure. If you don't cure the glue that's in these large rolls of film material that's been printed, laminated, etc., that goes to another process called a slitter, because you print multiple lanes across. And in that process, if the glue is not cured, it will literally leak out the sides of the rolls and glue the roll together. Literally, I've seen it numerous times when stuff has not cured properly. It will also telescope, which is another issue. Basically, it becomes a roll. It looks like a nice roll of whatever. It will literally slide out like a telescope. It's crazy. Anyway, that's why the hot rooms are used. Different facilities that do this kind of thing. It's not an uncommon practice. This was of any facility that I ever worked in, it was by far the largest hot room that I was ever around. It was pretty crazy, but yeah, that's why, and the associated work that I did for 25 years or so. So hopefully that explains that. Anyway, all right, we've been at it here a little over 3 hours, so I think it's time we call it good. Before we get to the end of everything, has there been any more questions we can jump to right quick? Looks like we pretty much answered everything. Final comments, Doc?
Yeah, great podcast, Jack 61. Thank you for putting this on. I really learned a lot, and yeah, put the ear to the ground, because I think this is going to potentially explode. Very interesting. Thank you so much, guys, and everyone in chat.
Thank you very much, Doc, and thanks for the excellent reading. Appreciate that, for the documents. Susan, final comments?
Yeah, very interesting. I think I saw where he's actually supposed to be indicted or arraigned on the 4th of December, something like that.
Yeah, we'll try to dig into that and find out for sure.
Yeah, be interesting if we could zoom in on that court
Absolutely.
proceeding. Yeah, possibly.
All right.
But anyway, yeah, it was great, Jack. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the excellent reading as always, Susan.
You bet.
Very much appreciated. And Sunshine Christine, final thoughts?
Only time will tell. I think I put a comment in YouTube. They can pretend there's nothing amiss here all they want, but the truth's going to come out. It is, and justice will be done. And I just, it's going to be an interesting next few months just to watch and see what happens, because I think that, like Doc said, it's very curious indeed, very curious. So we have Ken Kratz, we have Kaczynski, and we have Remiker. Those are three that have had contact, criminal contact. Now, Kratz wasn't convicted, but that's only because he was a DA, and DAs pretty much have like a free pass that they should not have. You got to do something really wrong as a DA to get in trouble. We saw that in the Melissa Lucio case, but that's rare. But I'm just curious to see who the next one is that cracks. And as always, amazing podcast, and thanks for all the excellent questions.
All righty, Christina. Thank you for the
No.
excellent reading and participation. Doc?
Can I make a final comment?
Sure.
Tongue in cheek. Well, it looks like it's not only Stephen Avery that's got a bad memory, huh?
Or DA Roar?
Exactly right.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really interesting. All righty, guys. I'm going to get us on out of here. Really appreciate all the live chatters. If you're so inclined, give us a like and subscribe, share. We'll keep diving into this and get as much information as we can. I know of 2 records requests that I'll be doing here in the next day or 2 to try to get us more information, which I think maybe I don't know if they'll be granted or not, obviously, but anyway, we'll dive back into the DCI reports next week. I'll change the title of this one so there's no confusion, and we'll start fresh. Unless we find something out this coming week. If something is found out that's interesting, maybe we'll pop on and do it live through the week. We'll just have to see. Anyway, thanks again. Appreciate everybody. With that said, this has been a Foul Play production.